For a little while yet. Quite hit and miss though, so many of us avoiding them. Further north though, across parts of Northern Ireland and much of Scotland, particularly the north and west of Scotland, here the showers are still going to be quite frequent and there could still be some heavier ones. Even some of those showers pushing across some eastern parts as we go into the evening as well. Then overnight, most places turning largely dry, particularly across some central eastern parts. Further north and west, a greater chance of seeing a few showers continuing, but on the whole, an often quite dry night with some clear skies as well. Later on we are going to see some heavy rain and stronger winds pushing into the southwest, but ahead of that, with those clearer skies, a little bit of a fresh night perhaps. Temperatures in towns and cities though generally holding up in double figures. Then that band of heavy showery rain I mentioned towards the southwest, that is going to make its way eastwards across much of the country as we go through tomorrow. There could be some thunder mixed in with this as well as some heavy downpours, so it could cause a few isolated issues, but something a bit drier, brighter following in from the west. For many, temperatures tomorrow down a couple of degrees.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, the National Memorial to Queen Elizabeth II will include a new bridge in St James's Park, designed by Norman Foster.
Yes, the translucent bridge will be inspired by the tiara the Queen wore on her wedding day.
But let's get more now from St James's Park with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, what's the memorial going to be like?
Good afternoon, Tom and Emily. Yes, the wait is finally over. We have the final design from the renowned architect Lord Foster, who famously once criticised the King for his views on architecture. But of course, today it's all about honouring Queen Elizabeth II and her legacy. On that theme, at Marlborough Gate, which is the big gate you see behind me, which overlooks the Mall, that's going to be renamed Queen Elizabeth II Place. And there is, according to the artist impression, going to be a big statue of Queen Elizabeth II riding a horse overlooking the Mall. Of course, incredibly poignant because she had a deep love of all things equine. Incredibly poignant, of course, as well, significant love between Prince Philip and the late Queen. It's going to apparently, according to the architect, or hinted by the architect, light up at night as well, which is meant to symbolise all the diamonds that were part of that tiara. And the Queen famously also gave it to her granddaughter, loaned it to her granddaughter, Princess Beatrice, for her wedding in 2020. And then we come to the final part of St James's Park's Queen Elizabeth II's memorial, and that is going to be right here at the other end of the park, overlooking Birdcage Walk, going to be renamed Prince Philip Gate, because a new statue of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip is going to be erected at the other side of St James's Park. It's meant to be them, according to the artist's impressions, in their younger years.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, good afternoon. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News with me, Alex Armstrong. Of course, we're broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and across the United Kingdom.
You come to the UK illegally, you will be detained and deported and never, ever allowed to stay. Period.
Well, Nigel Farage warns the migrant crisis is a threat to public order, and he's vowed to deport 600,000 migrants in his first term. But Lib Dem leader Ed Davey says the plans for mass deportations crumble under scrutiny.
It looks like Nigel Farage wants to follow his hero Vladimir Putin and pull out of the EHCR. I think Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave.
Surprised I didn't see him on a trampoline there. Anyway, while Tory leader Kemi Badenoch says Nigel Farage has copied her homework.
About a deportation bill in May, the stuff that actually works and what he said has come from there. But the truth is, he is not doing the thinking, we are.
Yes, I promise you'll be digging into all that news, but as children as young as 10 are among dozens of youths being put on NHS fat jabs, I'll be joined by the weight loss motivation master who says it's sickening podgy kids should do some exercise. And Brits are bracing for a horrendous winter of rat infestations as 20-inch giant rodents are set to invade homes. I'll be joined by Chief Verminator of the Yorkshire Rat Pack who says he's catching rats the size of dogs. And fighters lay a saucy smackdown at the World Gravy Wrestling Championships. 1,500 litres of Lancashire gravy was used, enough for 15,000 roast dinners. I'll be getting down and dirty with the six-time world champion Joel Hicks. Well, it's going to be a jam-packed show today. We'll be really digging into these mass deportation plans, looking at all of the different parties, seeing who's got perhaps the best idea of where the public want them to be. But of course, on that note, I want to hear from you. gbnews.com/Yoursay. I'll read out some of your views throughout the show. But now it's time for your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Alex, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Just after 3 o'clock. Well, the top story this afternoon, Nigel Farage has unveiled Reform UK's plans to deport all small boat migrants and warned that migration now, he says, poses a genuine threat to public order.
Today we launch Operation Restoring Justice. And as far as the people of this country is concerned, frankly, these measures can't come soon enough.
Well, he says only mass deportations and a ban on asylum claims for illegal arrivals will restore that public trust. Speaking earlier this morning, the Reform leader accused successive governments of failing the public and said outdated treaties must be scrapped.
The only way we will stop the boats is by detaining and deporting absolutely anyone that comes via that route. And if we do that, the boats will stop coming within days. If you come to the UK illegally, you will be detained and deported and never, ever allowed to stay, period.
But Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has accused Reform of reheating and recycling Tory plans on immigration.
Nigel Farage is copying our homework. We put out a deportation bill in May. The stuff that actually works and what he said has come from there. But the truth is, he is not doing the thinking, we are. And just like we've seen with the Labour governments who didn't do their thinking in opposition, there'll be a disaster in government and in particular a disaster on the economy.
Well, the Reform leader also pledged earlier to pull Britain out of key international agreements, including the European Convention on Human Rights. But Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook told us the Labour government would welcome discussions about changing how the ECHR operates, but they wouldn't scrap it.
We don't think it's in our national interest to withdraw completely, put ourselves in the same camp as two other countries, Russia and Belarus. But that is not to say that we don't think the convention needs reform. We're making the case for reform in Europe. The Justice Secretary was at the Council of Europe in June doing just that. And we are looking about how the convention is implemented domestically.
And leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, has said he agrees deportation is part of the solution, but claims that Brexit is ultimately to blame for the migrant crisis.
Looks like Nigel Farage wants to follow his hero Vladimir Putin and pull out of the EHCR. I think Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave at that. You know, the truth is, it was Farage's Brexit that caused the small boats. Before Brexit, we could send back any illegal immigrant coming over in a small boat. Actually, Nigel Farage should have apologised today.
And in other news, food inflation has hit its highest level in 18 months, driven by rising prices for chocolate, butter and eggs. New figures put the cost of food and drink up 4.2% this month, with the British Retail Consortium warning it will just heap more pressure on families. The ONS also says global supply problems, poor weather and higher running costs are all to blame. But economist Vicky Price says there is at least one silver lining.
Yes, food prices went up very significantly, but non-food products went down by 0.8%, which is at least a bit of relief, particularly as people are going shopping for uniforms and things that they need for the children going back to school. So there is a little bit of relief there. But if food is the real issue, which is affecting everybody.
Those are the headlines. That's it from me for this afternoon. Cameron Walker here next at 3:30 for a full roundup, but let's take a look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
And here are those markets for you. The pound will buy you $1.3483 and €1.1578. The price of gold, £2,504 and 40 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,277 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, Nigel Farage has warned that growing anger at illegal migration in Britain is a threat to public order. That's as he revealed his plans for mass deportations.
The only way we will stop the boats is by detaining and deporting absolutely anyone that comes via that route. And if we do that, the boats will stop coming within days. If you come to the UK illegally, you will be detained and deported and never, ever allowed to stay, period.
And earlier this afternoon, leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey, claimed Nigel Farage's deportation plan crumbles under scrutiny.
Looks like Nigel Farage wants to follow his hero Vladimir Putin and pull out of the EHCR. I think Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave at that. You know, the truth is, it was Farage's Brexit that caused the small boats. Before Brexit, we could send back any illegal immigrant coming over in a small boat. Actually, Nigel Farage should have apologised today.
OK. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has accused Nigel Farage of copying her party's policies.
Nigel Farage is copying our homework. We put out a deportation bill in May. The stuff that actually works and what he said has come from there. But the truth is, he is not doing the thinking, we are. And just like we've seen with the Labour governments who didn't do their thinking in opposition, there'll be a disaster in government and in particular, a disaster on the economy.
OK, let's bring in GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster, who's been up in Oxford at the event. Catherine.
Well, good afternoon from Oxford Airport, where Reform laid out their plan. They call it restoring justice, and they say that if you come illegally on a small boat, if Reform gets into government in 4 years' time, not only that, but they also say that if you're already in the UK illegally, and they estimate there's over 1 million people that are, they will deport you too. So a really radical plan that goes everybody else has suggested. Now, of course, the Tories are saying, well, they're copying our ideas because detaining and sending off to places like Rwanda was part of that plan, although they didn't go as far as withdrawing from the ECHR. Now, Reform said they will withdraw from the ECHR and a whole load of other international agreements. They will do this, they say, for 5 years as an emergency measure so that they can detain people on arrival, they say, in remote parts of the country. It won't matter where those are to locals, they say, because those people will not be free to walk among us. And then they will notifications to people that are here illegally saying, we know that you're here, and they will be given 6 months to either go of their own volition with £2,500 in their pocket and a free flight, or they will be deported. So incredibly hardcore, really, though they say that this is just common sense. Nigel Farage says it's what normal countries do all over the world. But there has been a shift in position, because Nigel Farage told back in September that it was politically impossible to deport hundreds of thousands of people. Let's see what he said when I put that to him this morning.
The political impossibility was deporting millions and millions of people, and that's where the argument had gone. We had a situation, a political difficulty within Reform UK. This does happen to parties. They do have difficulties and problems. We had a problem that one of our MPs, who's no longer an MP, was talking about deporting entire communities, including people who've been born here. And frankly, we found that unacceptable. And so I just did not want, I think you can quote me for another interview, to get dragged down the route of mass deportations at that stage. We have sorted out that political internal difficulty that we had, and since that time, the work has been done on a credible plan so that we can deport hundreds of thousands of people over the 5 years of a Reform government.
So Farage taking a pop at former Reform MP Rupert Lowe there. But look, there has been a shift in position, and Farage referred to it. Zia Youssef, the head of Doge, has been working on this months, and of course also they've seen what has happened over in America, where Donald Trump has very successfully got the number of people entering the US illegally down massively, and also deported people. So a very bold plan.
We stay with Catherine
already
for a question.
Lots of people coming out to say it will never work. The Prime Minister's official spokesman has said that anybody saying that we should pull out of the ECHR is not serious. Ed Davey, the Lib Dem leader, saying that Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave. But whatever you think of these proposals, there is no doubt making the political weather on this. We've had all these pledges: stop the boat, smash the gangs. They seem comparatively like tinkering around the edges. But of course, could this actually be done in practice?
Well, thank you, Catherine Forster, there live from Oxford Airport, where that Reform UK mass deportations event has been happening. Thank you, Catherine. Let's bring in GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, thank you for joining me. This seems to have caused a little bit of a political stir amongst the other party leaders. Keir Starmer has come out and suggested that he may also look to deport to Afghanistan and other countries. We've also got Kemi Badenoch there saying that she thinks that Nigel Farage has been copying her homework.
Well, he's actually still in a march on Kemi Badenoch in that sense, because she's still not come out after many months of contemplating what to do with regard to the ECHR. She's still not come out and said whether the Conservatives under her leadership, if they were in government, would scrap or come out of the ECHR. Nigel Farage has clearly decided that he is going to do that, and also come out of a number of other treaties and introduce a UK Bill of Rights. It's an evolution in the thinking of Reform and its leader, there's no doubt, because months ago, a year ago or so, Reform was very wedded to the idea of being more robust in the channel with those coming across. And again, just over the bank holiday weekend, we've seen 900 small boat migrants coming across the English Channel. And there it was all about, forcing the returns of these boats and forcing it really on France, so that France would just have to deal with it. But of course, in practical terms, if you're leading a government, are you really going to diplomatic war with France, and therefore, of course, also the European Union? So the evolution in the thinking has come to the conclusion, as far as Nigel Farage is concerned, at this stage, that what they want to do instead is to suspend those legal treaties and come out of others, and ensure that they have nothing in the way in terms of a legal roadblock from the likes of the judges and lawsuits and alike that would stop them deporting people back to the country of origin, and indeed also ensuring that with countries that don't comply, then there could be penalties for them, such as denying them the ability, or their citizens the ability, to apply for visas to this country.
Mark White, thank you so much for joining me. GBNews political home and political editor there, security editor. Thank you very much for joining me. Well, joining me now is former Attorney General Dominic Grieve, who says courts would block Nigel Farage's mass deportation plan. Dominic, thank you for joining me. Of course, Ed Davey has come out quite strong today and said that Churchill would be turning in his grave, perhaps. Is that a fair comment?
Well, I think it is a fair comment. Because Churchill was the architect of the European Convention on Human Rights and believed very much in an international rules-based system. That's not to say he wouldn't be concerned about the level of migration that's now taking place into this country. That's a different matter. But he believed in a rules-based system. Now, you picked up and said that the courts would prevent this from happening. It's not what I've said. I've said that the promise that Mr. Farage is making is fraught with potential problems. Firstly, he's not only got to pull out of the Refugee Convention and the European Convention on Human Rights, he's got to scrap the Human Rights Act, and he's got to get rid of all the laws which embody the Refugee Convention into our own domestic law, and in fact much more important than the ECHR in regulating how we deal with asylum seekers.
Okay,
if he does that, he's got to face up to the political consequences of the end of the trade and cooperation agreement with the EU and of the Good Friday Agreement, which are really serious international consequences, which have economic consequences for the country as well. So he's got to overcome that hurdle. And then I have no doubt that the courts, particularly if they're dealing with minors, because he appears to want to deport children as well, do have inherent jurisdiction outside of those to intervene to protect them. So he would have to override that with all the controversy that would go with it. After all, Magna Carta was a fetter, a moral fetter on the power of government in the Middle Ages. And if you start straying outside of what are regarded as moral norms, you may be able to be successful if you use parliamentary majorities to do it, but you're going to be in for quite a big battle.
Indeed. Well, Dominic, but is there not a point to be said here that these conventions and all this legislation is now unfit for purpose? We talk about Churchill potentially spinning in his grave, but I'm sure he'd be spinning in his grave the fact that there's been more illegal migrants crossing the Channel than there were troops sent to D-Day. You know, I'm sure that would be very disturbing for him also. So is there not a point to say, look, the international community has sat on these conventions for far too long. They are no longer fit for purpose. We're seeing almost weekly now consequences of the illegal migration crisis across Europe. We've got even socialist parties now turning against these conventions. Is there not a point to be said here that actually they are unfit for purpose? We are not doing anything about them. There seems to be no appetite from political leaders in Europe to change these. Therefore, Britain might have to go on its own.
Yes, you can make that argument. And certainly, I think the Refugee Convention was put together at a time when nobody envisaged the sort of thing that we are now seeing. The European Convention on Human Rights, as I say, is slightly different because I keep on making the point it's pretty peripheral to this issue around deportation. It only applies and will bite in a very limited number of cases. So you can make an argument that they both need change. But the difficulty is change is different from pulling out. If you pull out when other countries are still in, you're not going to get a very sympathetic hearing from those countries. It's better, if you can, to work with them to change it in a way that you think is practical to meet the current challenge. If you don't do that, you're going to lose your friends and lose your influence. And let's face it, as even Mr. Farage has acknowledged, at the end of the day, you can have all these things scrapped, but if the country of origin won't take the people back back to their homeland, you've got a problem. And in many cases, I think that is exactly what will happen. So if you don't have the leverage of allies whom you might work together to exercise influence over those countries, you've got an even bigger problem, and the entirety of your policy may well start to founder.
Yeah, Dominic, many people will point to, I mean, we talk about allies. It's taken us £500 million to convince France to do something. I mean, we say that's been relatively unsuccessful the last few years. I think we can all agree this one-in, one-out deal's only starting to kick off now. We're not even seeing the consequences of that, at least as a deterrence. And we look at our international allies, we say, well, actually, we seem like we're very much on our own here. France won't take back the migrants to their country. We're sort of left with them. We can't take them back. We've got countries like Pakistan saying, in some cases, no, we don't want them. So where are they now, Dominic? Where are our allies now?
Well, hold on a minute. I don't want to revisit Brexit. But, you know, the fact is that prior to Brexit, there was a legal obligation for the French to take them back. And we lost that when we decided to leave. So Ed Davies' comment that things have got much worse since are absolutely spot on correct.
Yes, but Dominic, regardless of Brexit, Dominic.
Each country is going to look to its own domestic audiences. And so I'm the first to accept that we might want better cooperation from the French. But I'm simply making the point that at the end of the day, if you want to solve this problem, it doesn't just affect us. France and Germany are getting colossal numbers of illegal migrants coming in to claim asylum as well. It's not just us. And so if you don't work on that point, I think it's going to make your life much more difficult.
OK, well, on that point, how is it that Greece and Germany are able to send their illegal migrants back, in some cases, to Syria, to Afghanistan, and the United Kingdom is still not there years later? What has been the hold-up for us?
Well, that is a separate issue. That may well be a number of failures at governmental level which are capable of being addressed. I rather agree with you. I think that there are a number of examples where deporting people back to their country of origin, we seem to be very poor at doing it. And the interesting thing is that those countries are still signatories of the Refugee Convention and also of the European Convention on Human Rights. So I've always taken the view that actually quite a lot can be done, even within the context of remaining adherent to the convention, both conventions. But that's, as I say, that's something which Nigel Farage apparently doesn't wish to do. But it's the fact that I think more could be done without actually changing the laws at all.
OK, well, Dominic, I honestly strongly believe, I think the public have had enough of conventions. I think they've had enough of worrying about allies. I think they just want something to be done about this. But I take your points. Thank you very much for joining me. Dominic, former Attorney General there. Pleasure to have you on the show. Well, let's move on now to some breaking news. Poundland has avoided entering administration after a restructuring plan was approved by a judge at the High Court, days before the company, of course, was due to run out of money. OK, well, still to come, a leading campaigner against anti-Muslim hate has warned Angela Rayner against pushing forward with an Islamophobia definition. He is joining me next. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, look, that last interview there's got you all riled up, and I totally appreciate it. Let me read some of your comments out. Isabel here says, Alex, Nigel Farage is our only hope. We can't go on encouraging illegals into our country. We cannot afford it financially or culturally. Gerald Oliver says, Winston Churchill has been spinning in his grave with what's happening to this country. I think he has, and I know Ed Davey was making this comment about, and I think Dominic Grieve backed it up, that Winston Churchill be spinning in his grave about the prospect of us leaving things like the ECHR and the Refugee Convention, but they're all been abused. They are all being abused by illegal migrants coming to this country. They claim asylum the minute they hit the ground here, and that means we can't deport them, which is the glaring hole in the Tories' plan. Kemi Badenoch saying that, or Badenoch, should I say, is saying that Nigel Farage copied her plan, which I know she's also called that. She doesn't like copycats, supposedly. But there's a big gaping hole in the plan for the Tories, which is that they haven't committed to leaving the ECHR, which means you can't do all the things they're pledging to do. And they know that, and they absolutely know that. So they've been caught red-handed there. Joe Average actually says, watch out, Nigel, Kemi will grass you up for copying. Unfortunately, that's something that she had said. Gordon says, Churchill would be turning his grave if you know how many illegal migrants have got into our country and what we are giving them, plus how much we're paying France. Yes, that's another slap in the face to British people. I think all these conventions, we should just get out of them while we can, because they are not being reformed. All these politicians talking about reforming all these things have been promising this for years, and they never do it, do they? Anyway, welcome back to the show, everybody. Well, Britain risks facing social unrest if Labour persists with plans to create a formal definition of Islamophobia. The head of advocacy group Tell Mama has warned that if Sir Keir Starmer's government pushes ahead with the move, it could deepen perceptions of a two-tier society. Campaigner opposing a new Islamophobia definition and founder of Tell Mama joins me. Fayaz Mughal is joining me now. Fayaz, thank you so much for joining me. You're campaigning against these Islamophobia definitions, I believe. Why is that? And do you agree with the sentiment that perhaps we could be entering to civil unrest if we do have these definitions?
Well, first of all, thank you for
having me. I think what's clear is the definition process has not been transparent in any way, shape or form from the people who have been handpicked to look at this. And in the past, some of these individuals have actually also supported a definition called the 2018 APPG definition on Islamophobia, where you could run a cart and horse right through that definition and include virtually anything around what could be Islamophobic. So the process has been not transparent. Second of all, we have in our society a persistent and growing belief that there is a two-tier society. I'm not making a comment on that. All I'm saying is that view is strongly held in parts of our communities. And when a definition is then thrown up, it really reinforces that perspective and it reinforces that narrative in the minds of people. It is something that doesn't bring communities together. It actually tears them apart. And it also reinforces a belief that some communities are getting a better deal than others. So this is the wrong way to move forward. But unfortunately, the government are not listening. It seems like they made their mind up and they're just trundling ahead to carry out and conduct this definition. So it's very problematic. Now, in relation to, what's the impact on society? As I said, the impact on society is this will just cause greater division. It will reinforce a them and us belief. It will reinforce in some parts of our communities they're not getting the same treatment. Rightly or wrongly, whether that's true or not, it will reinforce that belief.
Indeed. Fayez, I recently just had Dominic Grieve on, actually, who I believe was one of the writers of the APPG's definition of Islamophobia that the Labour Party have adopted. Now, many people are pointing to that definition, which seems to be the direction of movement, at least for Labour, who are, of course, in government and considering writing this legislation. In that, it's sort of quite confusing because it seems to conflate religion with race. And this is where a lot of people are extremely worried. They'll say, well, actually, this is a racism definition, and it will stop any criticism of the illegal migrant crisis, which many people are desperately concerned with. Is that where your concern of this civil unrest comes? Because people will feel like they have no longer got a voice to talk about the issue that's number one in their priority books.
Well, yes, absolutely right. Let me explain this. Look, there are clear definitions in law around what is a race and religious groupings. Clear definitions. Now, there are some over a decade, 15 years ago, when I've been working for 25 years in Muslim communities, 15, 20 years ago, groups that I would regard in parts of Muslim communities who may not hold the same social values and liberal values I hold, socially liberal values I hold, wanted to conflate race and religion together to get the protections of race in law for a religious community. And what's happened is that same process to some degree seems to be conducted in this definition process, that there is an inclusion of Muslims being a race rather than being a religious grouping that's being included in the processes here to try to get those protections around race. That is deeply problematic because the law is absolutely clear on that. And so if there is a definition that tries to bend itself towards including the racialization of being a Muslim, then it conflicts with the legal precedent, and it also tries to bring in protections through race and thereby will curtail the right of free speech for some individuals. Therein lies the crux of this argument. So it will have an impact on free speech. It will have an impact on what people may potentially say around Islam. And those things, particularly around religion and Islam, are legitimate discourses that people should be protected to have without targeting members of Muslim communities. The law is very clear about that. So you're absolutely right. This bending of the process, it seems, to include race is deeply problematic when the law is very clear of the distinguishing elements between the two around Muslim communities.
Indeed. Indeed, Fires. I'll also ask you, why is it now we are getting to a point where we feel like we need to have a law for this? What has been the moment? Because, of course, many people will point to the Labour Party and say, actually, they're desperate to retain the Muslim vote, which they are seemingly losing now to independents across the country. We've got Jeremy Corbyn's party hot on their heels, so to speak, at least in some polls. Is this because Labour is concerned about losing a Muslim vote, or is it because there is a rise in Islamophobia, so to speak, at least what some press reports have identified?
Well, let me be clear that from monitoring issues of anti-Muslim hate, because I don't even use the term Islamophobia, anti-Muslim hate, the reality is there's been a rise of anti-Muslim hate driven by a whole range of circumstances. But this is the difference. Current laws are significant enough to get prosecutions. Current laws are enough of the provisions. What I think has been happening are a range of things. I think a handful of individuals within government and supporters have come up with the view that a definition would be a panacea, would really help in the fight against Islamophobia in their terms. And that is a completely weak argument, okay? And so they've come up with this idea, and then people in government have just driven it, and it has been, in a way, supported by a view within political parts of the government to say, actually, we're losing support in Muslim communities. Yeah, let's drive this through. I think a combination of the two has led to this point. The reality is a definition is not going to be a panacea. A definition is causing division right now. We're seeing it. And a definition will simply legitimize in the minds of many a two-tier society. And I'm sorry to say the government are just not listening. The government are just got a blind spot to listening to this. And I'm sorry to say it will come back and bite them in the bottom in the future.
Fires Mughal, thank you so much for coming on, giving me your brilliant opinions as ever. Founder of Tell Mama there, thank you very much, Fires. Great to see you as usual. A spokesman for Angela Rayner's department has said this: we are absolutely committed to defending freedom of speech, and any proposed definition must be compatible with the right to freedom of speech and expression. Well, there's lots more to come between now and 4 o'clock. The number of children being sent home from school owing to racist behaviour has soared to record levels. But can 4-year-olds actually be racist? And who's really to blame? See you soon.
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Now, most of today's showers are going to ease as we go through the evening, but then there's some heavy thundery rain arriving as we go through tomorrow. That's because there's a weather system waiting out in the Atlantic, and this is going to push its way in through the next 24 hours. Before this, we do have a couple of fronts lying across us, but these are just bringing the focus for some showers. Like I said, though, most of those showers easing as we go through this evening and overnight, albeit some northern and western parts clinging on to a few showers for a little while longer. So most places having a largely dry night with some clear skies, under which it could turn a little fresh for some. Most towns and cities well staying into double figures, but some rural spots just about dropping into single figures. And then tomorrow we do have this wet and thundery weather that's coming in from the west. So quite early on, that's going to be pushing into parts of western, southwestern Wales, also across parts of Devon and Cornwall. A drier start further east across much of England. However, across Northern Ireland, it's a cloudy, wet start, some heavy bursts of rain. Watch out for some gusty winds through the morning rush hour as well. Whilst across much of Scotland, the heavy thundery rain will take a little while longer to reach here, but there could be a few showers around early on. That band of rain then does make its progress across the whole country. It's quite a narrow band of rain, but it's not moving especially quickly, so the rain shouldn't last particularly long, but we could see an hour or so of some heavy rain wherever you are. Just the further east you are, the longer it's going to take for that rain to arrive. There will also be some gusty winds, and the gusty winds, they'll add to a slightly fresher feel to things, with temperatures for many a few degrees down compared to today. That rain will eventually clear away towards the east as we go later on, with something sunnier, clearer following in behind, but a scattering of showers pushing in across parts of Northern Ireland. Plenty more showers to come as we go through the end of the week, and watch out, we could see some particularly wet and windy weather on Saturday. See you later.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Motorists on the M8 westbound should exercise caution between Junction 7A and Junction 8 due to debris. On the M4 westbound at Junction 40 in Taibach, electrical surveys have closed the exit slip road with diversions set up. In Cambridgeshire, an accident on the M11 southbound at Junction 12 has resulted in all lanes being closed. In Shropshire, on the A5 northbound at the A488 junction, a lane remains closed due to a load spillage. The A5 southbound in Warwickshire is experiencing slight delays today. And on the trains, cross-country is facing disruptions between Leeds and Sheffield. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back, I'm Alex Armstrong on GB News. Well, children as young as 4 are being sent home from school for racist behaviour. Suspensions and expulsions rocketed in schools, doubling from 7,000 incidents to over 15,000 this term year. Well, joining me now is Director of Don't Divide Us, Alka Segal Cuthbert. Thank you, Alka, for joining me. This is going to be quite shocking to many people. I mean, the reports here are saying reception class children as young as 4, including 15,000 reports, which led to pupils being sent home. What is... I guess I don't even know where to start, Alka. Can a 4-year-old be racist? Maybe let's start there.
Well, first of all, hello, and thank you for inviting me on. Yes, it does make you think, what on earth is going on? No, I think as to your question, no, 4-year-olds can't be racist. What they can do, like what all children do, is they will mimic, without really understanding, words and language that, that they might pick up from home or from the wider culture, from the news and what have you. And some of those can be rude, offensive, including racial slurs that adults would say don't use, would rightly disapprove of. And that's really all teachers have to do, is tell children not to say it. They do not have to send them home. The fact that there's this overreaction in schools, I think, stems from two things. One is a kind of definitional expansion whereby all sorts of things are being labelled as racist. Schools are under a certain amount of pressure to keep records of all such incidents. That's largely through Ofsted, the pressure's coming from, who want everything recorded. And that's underpinned by the kind of provisions of the Equality Act that also requires recording of all kinds of incidents. And often institutions, including schools, kind of really feel a sense that they have to record everything, lest there's any trouble further down the line. If anyone questions them, if they haven't got the paperwork, if they haven't got all the details on hand, they'll be penalised. So there's that. And then you've got, at the same time, a real loss of confidence, I think, amongst the teaching profession in the work that they're really meant to do, which is to educate, which is a lot more difficult than acting in a very authoritarian way to, in a kind of social engineering project. So, we say, oh, well, nobody likes racism. Oh, my goodness, this 4-year-old has said a racist word. Quick, stamp it out quickly. The idea that you might just, be a little bit more relaxed about it, which isn't to say you're condoning racism. Obviously, you take it up. But there's lots of different things you can do other than go straight for the send them home, basically telling them that they're not, not fit for school because they've made a mistake, as all children do. We can all remember saying something we deeply regret as a child, I'm sure.
Absolutely, Alka. I mean, it does seem absolutely preposterous that 4-year-olds will be sent home for this kind of behaviour. As you correctly said, I think they don't think they quite understand, perhaps, if there was a racist comment there, perhaps, that what they were saying. But what I would also point to some other stories that have taken place this year. We had some schools that had sent children home for wearing a Union flag dress. That comes to mind immediately when I think of this story. And many people, and many of our audience will ask, is there this sense that inside the educational field, teachers and so on are becoming so ideologically polarised to perhaps British values that actually everything is seen as offensive to them if it's not this, we were just talking about Islamophobia definition just a moment ago, this sort of new bureaucratic way of thinking where you must prescribe to the ideology of the day?
Well, there is. I mean, this. I'm not saying that all teachers are wholehearted subscribers to this, but there is definitely the education profession, along with academia, has been at the centre of a cultural project of stigmatising British history and British cultural achievements. There is no doubt about that. That's partly intentionally through the political commitments of those in those positions of power and authority in these institutions, and just unthinkingly of just going along with, no, we won't celebrate Easter because Easter, of all the Christian celebrations, might be offensive to the refugee children we've got coming in, joining school next week, rather than understand that actually, that story could be quite a welcoming, inclusive story in itself. So there's a real kind of combination of ignorance and ideology and activism that is really, I would say, destroying the possibility of education.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Alka Segal, but thank you so much for joining me, Director of Don't Divide Us. Really interesting stuff there. I mean, there's also this weird rise. It's up about 100% since 2021, all these reports. So who knows what's going on? Anyway, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Well, there's plenty of sunny spells across Europe, but also some widespread thunderstorms developing. So across much of Madeira and the Canary Islands, a few showers here and breezy. Across Spain, fine with plenty of sunshine. But here are those thunderstorms with the risk of hail and lightning. Across Greece, much of the country seeing plenty of sunshine here. And as we go through the week, there'll still be some showers around, but also plenty of sunshine still, and temperatures up to 33.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Got a lovely article on the Times Online about you and Maggie, your lovely dog, who is 17.
Yeah.
But I was reading, and I have to ask you, about what happens when the day comes when Maggie passes on.
Yeah.
You'd like to get her stuffed?
Well, the thing is, she's of stuffing size. You know,
she's taxidermy. I'm not sure about this.
She's quite good. She's about the size of a fox. So she is, and she could just sit very nicely on the mantelpiece.
Oh, you wouldn't want her on your mantelpiece. Look at her.
But why? Well, why
wouldn't it
would
upset you too much?
No, it wouldn't upset me. It would make me feel quite good. I have got a bronze statue of her made.
Oh, I like that statue. I've seen that before, yeah.
And when it was made, you had her and the statue together and you couldn't tell which was which, really. But they are. Look, it's love. Dogs bring out the best love in you. It's an unconditional love. You'll never experience anything else like it, and it's that way back from me. That was 17 years ago.
Oh, look at her.
Do you think I look any different?
You haven't changed a dot. You haven't changed a dot. She's gone a little bit grey, hasn't she? But she's still smiling. And if we've got the pictures from yesterday, she's got a big smile on her face.
Because she's an adopted dog, I think she appreciates, you know, the new home that she's got and the life that she was taken away from.
She's grateful, isn't she? I get that from her.
Well, I would. That's what I would like to think. That's what I like to think. And if you can, please adopt and do not shop.
Yeah, I'm in the market for a dog.
Yeah?
Yeah. After the honeymoon, I think we're going to start looking for a dog. That's the plan. So maybe honestly, early next year.
Go round one of the homing centres, you know, just adopt.
But I'd want to take all of them home. That would be my problem.
Well, that could well
I'd end
be
up with 50.
But what
Need a farm.
What a great choice to make.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Alex Armstrong. Well, a concerning story here, because children as young as 10 are reportedly among dozens of youths being put on NHS fat jabs. At least 188 severely obese youngsters are being prescribed Wegovy at specialist NHS weight loss clinics. Data from 13 health trusts has suggested this. Well, we can now speak with GB News health editor Lucy Johnston. Lucy, thank you for joining me. This is very concerning, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, I suspect we're not sure of the long-term health implications for these young people, because I'm sure these jabs have been tested on adults, but perhaps not tested on children quite yet.
You're absolutely right. And I had a look just before coming on and spoken to a couple of clinicians. So the tests, there's one test I could find in the New England Journal of Medicine that only tested 82 children, and it found that the weight loss for them was not very significant. So you would expect to achieve maybe up to 20% weight loss as adults. It was just around 5 to 6%. But what was disturbing is that in these children, 80% had side effects. So that includes severe nausea, constipation, tiredness, headaches, depression. And 1 in 10 of them had severe side effects, which includes inflammation of the pancreas and even problems with perhaps cancer in the long term. And we do know that with these drugs, you don't just lose fat, but you also lose muscle and bone. And as children, this is when you are laying down your bones for the future. So it is a very very concerning thing to be hearing that these children are getting these drugs. And we do have a huge problem in this country. So that's not to say we don't have a problem. We've got 2/3 of our children is either overweight or obese. And I think it's about 1 in 10 children aged 4 to 6 is obese. So it's a massive problem. But instead of giving drugs, we can't really give these drugs at a population level. You'd be prescribing over 1 million children potentially with these drugs. We haven't got the infrastructure, we haven't got the money to do it, because you're meant to do it alongside lifestyle changes. So we need to really think about our food environment, the toxic food environment. We have ghettos of areas, particularly in deprived areas, where we have just fast food outlets, calorie-rich foods, which don't have much nutritional value. And this is why we're failing children, and looking, horizon scanning really, looking down track, what are we going to be seeing in the future? If these children are obese now, it's a chronic disease. We will be facing huge problems in the health service with all the health problems that are associated with obesity. So we need to think how to tackle it at the root.
Lucy, is it at the fault of the media, perhaps? Have we glorified these jabs too much? I know we see young people are seeing a lot of their celebrities all of a sudden lose a lot of weight and they look glamorous and fantastic, and I'm very happy for them. But perhaps, there's also this black market I've been reading about, this black market of kids, perhaps at boarding schools and kids who might not be able to get it, their parents may not know about it, who are potentially taking these jabs as well. So is there a fault here that we've glorified these jabs too much?
I don't think I've ever seen a drug that has been so popularized and so celebrated. It's been celebrated by people in Hollywood, by doctors who are singing the praises. And it isn't long that they've been on the market. And what people don't seem to be emphasizing is that we don't, the evidence hasn't caught up with the enthusiasm in a way. And there are concerns. We did a piece recently on GB News that there's a 5-fold increase in hip fracture risk in women who are taking it. There are also all sorts of side effects. And are we going to be causing problems for the NHS? Some people even say crippling the NHS with the problems caused by the drugs. So it's not
Lucy,
a fix.
I'm so sorry to cut you off. We've got to go. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, Nigel Farage just vowed to deport 600,000 migrants. We're going to be digging into all of that very soon.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Now, most of today's showers are going to ease as we go through the evening, but then there's some heavy thundery rain arriving as we go through tomorrow. That's because there's a weather system waiting out in the Atlantic, and this is going to push its way in through the next 24 hours. Before this, we do have a couple of fronts lying across us, but these are just bringing the focus for some showers. Like I said, though, most of those showers easing as we go through this evening and overnight, albeit some northern and western parts clinging on to a few showers for a little while longer. So places having a largely dry night with some clear skies, under which it could turn a little fresh for some. Most towns and cities well staying into double figures, but some rural spots just about dropping into single figures. And then tomorrow we do have this wet and thundery weather that's coming in from the west. So quite early on, that's going to be pushing into parts of western, southwestern Wales, also across parts of Devon and Cornwall. A drier start further east across much of England. However, across Northern Ireland, it's a cloudy, wet start, some heavy bursts of rain. Watch out for some gusty winds through the morning rush hour as well. Whilst across much of Scotland, the heavy thundery rain will take a little while longer to reach here, but there could be a few showers around early on. That band of rain then does make its progress across the whole country. It's quite a narrow band of rain, but it's not moving especially quickly, so the rain shouldn't last particularly long, but we could see an hour or so of some heavy rain wherever you are. Just the further east you are, the longer it's going to take for that rain to arrive. There will also be some gusty winds, and the gusty winds, they'll add to a slightly fresher feel to things, with temperatures for many a few degrees down compared to today. That rain will eventually clear away towards the east as we go later on, with something sunnier, clearer following in behind, but a scattering of showers pushing in across parts of Northern Ireland. Plenty more showers to come as we go through the end of the week, and watch out, we could see some particularly wet and windy weather on Saturday. See you later.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. In Falkirk, drivers should be cautious due to surface water. The M4 westbound at junction 40, Taibach, has a closed exit slip road due to electrical work with diversions in place. In Durham, the A66 westbound between the A1M and A67 is shut due to a collision, expected to clear between 8:30 and 8:45 this evening. In Shropshire, a load spillage has closed one lane on the A5 northbound at the A488 junction, and on the trains cross-country between Leeds and Sheffield and East Midlands Railway between Kettering and Leicester face disruptions. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, it's 4 o'clock. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Alex Armstrong, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and across the United Kingdom.
You come to the UK illegally, you will be detained and deported and never, ever allowed to stay. Period.
And Nigel Farage warns the migrant crisis is a threat to public order, and he's vowed to deport 600,000 migrants in his first term. But Lib Dem leader Ed Davey says the plan for mass deportations crumbles under scrutiny.
It looks like Nigel Farage wants to follow his hero Vladimir Putin and pull out of the EHCR. I think Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave.
Well, that's while Tory leader Kemi Badenoch says Nigel Farage has copied her homework.
About a deportation bill in May, the stuff that actually works and what he said has come from there. But the truth is, he is not doing the thinking, we are.
Yes, and children as young as 10 are among dozens of youths being put on NHS fat jabs. I'll be joined by a weight loss motivation master who says it's sickening. Podgy kids should do some exercise. Hear, hear. Brits are bracing for a horrendous winter of rat infestations as 20-inch giant rodents are set to invade homes. I'll be joined by Chief Verminator of the Yorkshire Rat Pack who says he's catching rats the size of dogs. And fighters are laying a saucy smackdown at the World Gravy Wrestling Championships. 1,500 litres of Lancashire gravy was used, enough for 15,000 roast dinners. I'll be getting down and dirty with the 6-time world champion Joel Hicks. Just to clarify, I will not be participating in a gravy fight, just in case that last bit wasn't clear there. Anyway, I want to hear your views, gbnews.com/yoursay, but first it's your news headlines with Cameron Walker.
Thanks, Alex. Good afternoon. It is 2 minutes past 4. I'm Cameron Walker in the GB newsroom. First, Nigel Farage has unveiled Reform UK's plans to deport all small boat migrants, warning migration now poses a genuine threat to public order.
Today we launch Operation Restoring Justice. And as far as the people of this country is concerned, frankly, these measures can't come soon enough.
He says only mass deportations and a ban on asylum claims for illegal arrivals will restore trust. Speaking earlier, the Reform UK leader accused successive governments of failing the public and said outdated treaties must be scrapped.
The only way we will stop the boats is by detaining and deporting absolutely anyone that comes via that route. And if we do that, the boats will stop coming within days. If you come to the UK illegally, you will be detained and deported and never, ever allowed to stay. Period.
However, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has accused Reform of reheating and recycling Tory plans on immigration.
Nigel Farage is copying our homework. We put out a deportation bill in May. The stuff that actually works and what he said has come from there. But the truth is, he is not doing the thinking, we are. And just like we've seen with the Labour governments who didn't do their thinking in opposition, there'll be a disaster in government and in particular, a disaster on the economy.
The Reform leader also pledged to pull Britain out of key international agreements, including the European Convention on Human Rights. Earlier, Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook told us the Labour government would welcome discussions about changing how the ECHR operates, but would not scrap it.
We don't think it's in our national interest to withdraw completely, put ourselves in the same camp as two other countries, Russia and Belarus. But that is not to say that we don't think the convention needs reform. We're making the case for reform in Europe. The Justice Secretary was at the Council of Europe in June doing just that. And we are looking about how the convention is implemented domestically.
The leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, agrees deportation is part of the solution, but claims Brexit is to blame for the migration crisis.
It looks like Nigel Farage wants to follow his hero Vladimir Putin and pull out of the EHCR. I think Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave at that. You know, the truth is, it was Farage's Brexit that caused the small boats. Before Brexit, we could send back any illegal immigrant coming over in a small boat. Actually, Nigel Farage should have apologised today.
And in some breaking news, Poundland has avoided entering administration after a restructuring plan was approved by a judge at the High Court days before the company was due to run out of money. Barristers for the retailer had told a hearing earlier today that it would be placed into administration by Friday and was set to run out of money by the 7th of September if the plan was not approved. The scheme will see up to £60 million of new funding injected to keep the retailer afloat, among some other terms. Meanwhile, food inflation has hit its highest level in 18 months, driven by rising prices for chocolate, butter and eggs. The new figures put the cost of food and drink up 4.2% this month, with the British Retailer Consortium warning it will heap more pressure on families already battling high living costs. The ONS says global supply problems, poor weather and higher running costs are all to blame. But economist Vicky Price says there is at least one silver lining.
Yes, food prices went up very significantly, but non-food products went down by 0.8%, which is at least a bit of relief, particularly as people are going shopping for uniforms and things that they need for the children going back to school. So there is a little bit of relief there. But food is the real issue, which is affecting everybody.
A packed Boeing 777 with more than 300 people on board has been forced to make an emergency landing deep inside Russia. The Air China jet bound for Beijing suffered reported engine failure after leaving London last night, diverting to an airport in Siberia, 1,400 miles east of Moscow. Passengers now face huge uncertainty with limited facilities in the remote oil city, and Western bank cards are not working under Russian sanctions. The Foreign Office continues to warn against all travel to Russia, where officials say foreigners risk detention. Well, those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker. More in half an hour.
Welcome back. Well, a resident of a hotel for migrants in Epping is facing trial for allegedly trying to kiss a 14-year-old girl. Let's get the latest from our national reporter, Jack Carson.
Yeah, thank you very much. The trial is finished for the day before it is continued tomorrow. These relating to Hadush Kebato, as you mentioned, relating to alleged attempts to kiss a 14-year-old girl after she offered him a slice of pizza. We heard evidence and the verbal statement from the 14-year-old girl in question today. She told the court that she left school around 3 p.m, that she saw the defendant with a friend. The friend had left and he was hovering around. They said her and her friends thought that he looked hungry, and so they offered him a slice of pizza. He accepted that offer and sat down with them. At that point, without any encouragement, she alleges that he said, "I want one baby with you," and pointing to her friend, "I want a baby with your friend." She said that Monday on the 7th of July was the first time that she had ever seen him. They were taken back by that comment, but engaged in conversation with the man, asked him how he came to the UK. He told them that he came by boat, said that he was living at the Bell Hotel, but he asked again, allegedly, according to the girl's statement, that he wanted a baby from them. As the 14-year-old girl was engaging in conversation with her friend, she says, as she turned around, he tried to kiss me. She says and told the court that she told the defendant her age, that she was 14, over and over again. She said to the court today that when she told him her age, the defendant said that age does not matter. She said the defendant told her, "We can go back to the Bell Hotel and make African babies," telling her, "Give me a kiss, give me a kiss." But that 14-year-old girl and her friends rejected those advances, saying that she was trying to be nice, that she didn't want to be rude. The trial will continue at Colchester Magistrates tomorrow.
OK, Jack Carson there, live from Chelmsford Magistrates Court. Thank you. Moving on, Nigel Farage has warned that growing anger at the illegal migration crisis in Britain is a threat to public order, as he revealed his plans for mass deportations.
The only way we will stop the boats is by detaining and deporting absolutely anyone that comes via that route. And if we do that, the boats will stop coming within days. If you come to the UK illegally, you will be detained and deported and never, ever allowed to stay, period.
OK, well, let's bring in GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster, who has been live there at Oxford Airport. Catherine, bring us the latest.
Yes, well, it's quite something, isn't it, the reaction to these plans that Reform have outlined today. The Tories say that they are copying the Conservatives' home. They are open to potential returns agreements with countries like Afghanistan or Eritrea. Sir Ed Davey is part of the problem, and that Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave. But what they are bold and they are radical, because Nigel Farage is saying that if Reform form the next government, if you arrive illegally on a small boat, that you will be immediately detained, you will be put up in a detention camp in a remote part of the UK, you will not be free to roam the streets, you'll be given basic food and accommodation, and then you will be deported either back to where you came from, and they say that they will use a carrot and stick approach to getting deals with countries from Afghanistan to Iran to Eritrea and so on, or they will use tougher use financial incentives. They will also use threats of restricting visas if necessary. But it goes further than that, because they also talk about deporting the over 1 million people that are already here. Now, late last year, Nigel Farage told GB News that that was a political impossibility. When I asked why the change of heart, let's see what he said a little bit earlier.
The political impossibility was deporting millions and millions of people, and that's where the argument had gone. We had a situation, a political difficulty within Reform UK. This does happen to parties. They do have difficulties and problems. We had a problem that one of our MPs, who's no longer an MP, was talking about deporting entire communities, including people who've been born here. And frankly, we found that unacceptable. And so I just did not want, I think you can quote me for another interview, to get dragged down the route of mass deportations at that stage. We have sorted out that political internal difficulty that we had. And since that time, the work has been done on a credible plan so that we can deport hundreds of thousands of people over the 5 years of a Reform government.
So Nigel Farage taking a pop at former Reform MP Rupert Lowe there. But look, there definitely has been a shift in position. And we heard that Zia Youssef, the head of Doge for Reform, has been working on this plan for months and months and months. I think clearly they've been inspired too by what's been happening across in the US, where Donald Trump has very successfully dramatically reduced the numbers coming into the US illegally, and also has deported large numbers of people. So a real shift in the public mood and the conversation from, say, a year ago. But of course, could all this actually be implemented in reality? Well, that's a different question.
OK, Catherine Forster there, live from Oxford Airport. Thank you very much. Well, let's bring in GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, it seems that Nigel Farage has brought many of the party leaders out of recess.
Well, indeed, there's certainly been quite a bit of reaction. It will be interesting to see what the media and the newspapers make of that announcement and that speech by Nigel Farage today, because clearly it's ambitious, talking about deportations in the hundreds of thousands. Well, clearly the current government and the previous government in the form of the Conservatives will tell you till the cows come home just how difficult that is to deport people from the UK when you have a system that allows a legal industry, really, to pop up around an asylum seeker to ensure that any time they are turned down for asylum, they can appeal up the ladder to the next process that can last not just months, but sometimes years. Now, that's why Nigel Farage is saying that what they want to do is absolutely to come out of the ECHR, to suspend or to leave other international treaties that will leave, they believe, the judges nowhere to go in shouting down or ruling against any of the decisions that a reform government tries to implement. I think it's going to be a battle, though, there's no doubt, but it seems that Nigel Farage is up for the fight at this stage anyway, according to his speech today. But make no doubt about it, it will be a fight, because he will be pitting himself against not just the judiciary, all of the human rights lawyers, activist groups, but even many within government, the lawyers and the civil servants, many civil servants within government who will be very much opposed to what he is planning.
OK, thank you very much for joining me. GB News Home and Security Editor there, Mark White. Well, let's move on to former Director General of Border Force, Tony Smith. Tony, thank you very much for joining me. It seems to me that, Keir Starmer might be losing the battle here when it comes to deportation. 7 in 10 Brits feel that he's not up to the challenge or is doing a poor job of it. Is the plan by Nigel Farage today the robust policies that we need to take in order to control our borders?
Yeah, hi, Alex. Well, I think, the proof is always going to be in the numbers, isn't it? And we have seen record numbers coming across by a small boat, and also a record asylum intake this year of over 110,000. So, of course, people are concerned about this. There doesn't seem to have been any real progress made on either of those figures by this government. I think the honeymoon period is over now. I think what Nigel Farage is saying is what most people want to hear. Actually, if you come to this country illegally, then you will be detained and deported. So I think the message is very clear, but I think there are going to be quite a lot of obstacles in his way as he moves forward to try and implement the policy that he's set out.
And do you feel, having been in the Border Force yourself, do you feel that we are adequately, at least well-staffed, in order to take on the sort of policies that Farage is putting forward? Because he's talking about really bolstering at least the forces here in terms of creating this new command, I believe he's trying to set up as well, this new sort of illegal migrant command. Do you feel we're going to have the right amount of people in there with the right values to do this? Because it's going to take a certain type of person to want to execute on these ideas too.
I think it can be done, Alex. I think it's possible to do that. It would require some restructuring of the various commands within the Home Office, including the Border Force. He's talking about a deportation directorate. There's Immigration Enforcement Directorate already. I think the bigger problem is in the infrastructure, really, and that's the legal framework. The legal framework now on the border is hugely complicated with human rights, asylum claims and all the rest of it. Those are the things that he says he wants to dispense with. That will be a battle in getting out of all the international conventions with. And the other issue is detaining people. We need to detain people on arrival. The immigration detention state is an all-time low of about 2,300. It was double that when I was in service. So we do need to start pouring concrete and deciding, can we find places to put people in pending removal from the territory? So there's an awful lot of work to be done on all this, but I think it's probably a message that quite a lot of your listeners and viewers will want to be hearing.
Yes, it's certainly, I believe it is. 600,000 people, that's illegal migrants. That is Farage's pledge by the end of the next parliament if he were in office. We go back to that point there about detentions, because we have a prisons crisis in this country. We don't even have enough spaces for criminals here. Is it realistic to say we can actually move 600,000 people into some form of detention centre and await deportation?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem, and I think they need to start working on that now, really. What is the plan for that? We know there will be opposition in various parts of the country to having detention centres nearby, as there are for asylum accommodation centres. We know there will be inspections by various bodies who will find one reason or another why it's not safe to hold a migrant there. We've been through this at Manston with very quick turnaround processes, to the point where the Border Force doesn't even have enough time to vet and screen people, let alone to detain them for removal. So I think that is a really, really big proposition. And as you say, the prisons are full, and a lot of the current accommodation for immigration is being occupied by foreign national prisoners. So I think that's where I'd start. And I think they need to start pouring concrete now, really, or start and try and identify places where this is going to happen, if it's going to be a realistic policy.
Brilliant stuff. Well, former Director General of Border Force there, Tony Smith, thank you very much for joining me. Well, now I'm joined by Chief Political Commentator at The Independent, John Rentoul, who says Farage's plan is doomed to fail. John, John, you don't think it's looking very good for Nigel? Go on, take it away.
Well, I think I'm disappointed that this document that he's come out with today is as thin as it is. I mean, he's supposed to have put a lot of effort into it, sort of a lot of thought and detail, but it's a few pages. It very much feels like written on the back of a fag packet. I mean, he's made some progress. I thought it was interesting that in the press conference today, he admitted that the issue is complicated and difficult, and there are no easy answers. That at least is a step forward. But as Tony Smith said there just then, the question is how are you going to build 24,000 spaces in detention in 18 months, and is that going to be enough? I mean, if you're wanting to deport 600,000, then you're going to need more than that.
Oh, absolutely. But, John, do you know what the thing is, right? Is that I'm very much in favour of the plan he set out. I have to admit, I am very much in favour of it, because I feel, and I think there'd be many Brits at home who feel that actually the successive governments have sat on this issue and not had a strong approach. I mean, at least the message here is clear. If you come to this country, you're going to go. You're not going to be allowed to stay.
It's the same message that we heard from Rishi Sunak, and it's the same message we've heard from Keir Starmer. The only advantage that Nigel Farage has, of course, is that he hasn't been in government, and so people are more likely to believe it.
Well, I think also they trust Nigel Farage because he has been on top of this issue, probably more so than any other current politician in Britain. I think it's fair to say.
But he has to come up with a better plan than this. I mean, how are you going to deport to these countries like Iran and Afghanistan or Eritrea without their consent?
I think Iran is an interesting question. I think Afghanistan a little less difficult, because we've seen Germany are now doing it, so we could probably follow suit from what they're doing, right?
Paying the Taliban,
which I suspect we'll have to do.
Take some criminals.
I suspect we'll have to do the same thing. I suspect we will. But the question is, John, do we want them here, or would we rather go back to Afghanistan? I would rather pay and send them back to Afghanistan. I don't want to pay the Taliban. I mean, just be clear. I would rather we just set them on a plane and drop them off.
And the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, do we want to pay them?
No. I sympathise, because a lot of our viewers have said they are concerned that we are paying these despicable governments across the world. However, I think we have to ask ourselves, what other options do we have?
Well, I mean, that is where it starts to get difficult.
Yeah,
there are
many
few options.
There aren't many.
And I don't think people give Keir Starmer enough credit for having achieved the one really important thing, which is to get the French to accept the principle that we can send some people back to France. Now, if we can expand that, then that would be a much better solution to this problem than anything Nigel Farage has proposed.
I guess, John, the only problem with the French deal is that we first of all don't know if it's going to work or last, because it's this trial period. But also, we also haven't seen it act as a deterrent yet. And when there were some,
it won't act as a deterrent until you're sending nearly all
of them back.
Arrivals back. I mean, that is absolutely clear. But at least there is a path there to actually sending them back. Whereas Nigel Farage, he hopes to be able to send people back to Albania, he was talking about. I mean, we've heard what the Prime Minister of Albania has got to say about that to a Labour government, which is his political ally.
Yes.
He's not going to help out Nigel Farage. So, you know, Keir Starmer has actually, I mean, people won't give him credit for this, but he has actually got a more credible plan than Nigel Farage.
Well, I think it's all yet to be seen, isn't it? I think these two words, mass deportation, are not going to leave the public's mouth for a really, really long time, John. I'd be very keen to see if Labour can fix this crisis, because it might take the wind out of the right in the country. You never know.
They have to, because otherwise it's curtains.
John, I think you're absolutely right. I don't particularly have much faith in unfortunately, the government to do anything. I just don't try. Maybe I just don't have faith in government at all anymore. Who knows? I'm a bit jarred. There we go. Anyway, political commentator at The Independent. Thank you very much, John Rentoul, for joining me. Well, we have some breaking news to bring you. The Met Police have announced the number of arrests made at Notting Hill Carnival is at 528. I think that's a couple hundred more than last year. Well, lots more coming up on the show today. Nightlife deserts are merging across Britain as pubs, clubs and music venues are closing for good. And we're asking, is it Rachel Reeves's fault? This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Let me read some of your comments very briefly. Jane says, come on, Alex, we've had thousands in, sending a few hundred back won't touch the sides. I think that's in reference to the French deal there. I totally agree. It's bonkers. These deals are not working, and I don't believe this government's going to get a hold of it at all. I don't think they ideologically want to get a hold of it. So I totally concur there, Jane. PW says, for God's sake, I grew up in Coventry, a very multicultural city. We called each other all kinds of names and no one cried racism. That was in reference to 4-year-olds being sent home from school for being racist. Absolutely bonkers stuff. We're living in mad times, PW, aren't we? But anyway, moving on. Nightlife deserts are emerging across Britain as pubs, clubs and music venues are closing for good in the wake of Rachel Reeves' tax raid on the hospitality industry. Manchester and Birmingham are two of the worst hit by rapid decline in late-night venues. Well, we can now speak with CEO of the Nighttime Industry Association, Michael Kill. Michael, thank you for joining me. We are in a bit of a crisis, aren't we, with our nightlife venues up and down the country. Can we place purely the blame on Rachel Reeves' taxation here?
Well, I think the challenge is everyone that you speak to at the front line is very clear in terms of the economic situation. We've seen a 30 to 40% increase in operating costs since pre-COVID. And the other element is from the 1st of April, where the taxation came to fruition from the autumn budget. Most of these independent businesses have had to find about 30 to 80K in additional cost base. So without a doubt, it's had a huge impact. But we also have to consider the regulatory framework, things like safety late at night and the transport infrastructure, which is very poor after midnight, which are all challenges that have impacted our industry as a whole, particularly the late night economy.
Yeah, indeed. In places like London, 1 in 5 late-night venues have closed in the last 4 years. Many people point to COVID being a big moment, of course, that shut down a lot of businesses. But is there an underlying cultural movement here as well? Young people are either finding it too expensive to go to clubs and bars now, and culturally they're supposedly drinking less. Is that a driving force here as well, Michael?
Well, I think there's a common misconception. What we have to understand is, without a doubt, there are evolving changes where things like no and low alcohol come into it, but it doesn't stop people wanting to go out. The main driver around this impacting the industry is the fact that people haven't got enough money in their pocket. So the reality is the economics in terms of the cost of daily living and also the cost of operating, which increases the cost of prices at the front end, is all impacting the ability to trade. So for us, without a doubt, Rachel Reeves has something to talk to, and we are waiting with bated breath to see what she comes out with as we move towards the autumn budget.
Yeah, we've got politicians who have these sort of night czars. I don't know if you've encountered them at all, Michael, because they don't seem to be doing a very good job, in my opinion. Do we need actual people who have been in the industry, who know what they're talking about, that can actually help guide politicians into the right direction before we completely lose our nightlife for good? Or are these sorts of roles just completely useless in the grand scheme of things?
Well, I think we've had some very successful night czars, or nighttime economy advisors, as we call it. I think night czars is probably not the right word for it. So I think without a doubt, as we're seeing in London at the moment, Sadiq Khan has put together a nighttime economy task force. So I think these commissions, these task forces are the future, where we get a collective view where the issues are and start to deal with the more transactional issues out there when we look at nighttime economy. So there is an evolution of that representation, and I think those commissions are the way forward, and something London, the likes of Manchester and Birmingham, Bristol are starting to drive forward.
Indeed. And what about what can the government directly do to help? Is it just purely on taxes and giving some relief to nighttime businesses, or can they go further? Do we need a bailout for the nighttime industry, perhaps?
Without a doubt, I think it's multifaceted when we look at it. The industry have got to do something as well. They're very resilient in the way that they work, and they can pivot very quickly. We've seen the recent regulatory reform that's coming forward, and that needs to gather pace. We're looking at things like business rates reform, which I think is important, particularly for late night economy. But I also believe that we need to look at VAT as an issue, and the NIC contribution for employers has really crippled the industry, if I'm going to be completely honest, in a multitude of ways. So they're the three areas I think need focus, but we also need to look at things like safety after midnight and a transport infrastructure which is truly 24 hours, not only for consumer safety, but also for workforce safety.
Couldn't agree more with you there. Michael Kill, CEO of the Nighttime Industry Association, thank you very much for joining me. Well, still to come, there's lots more between now and 5 o'clock. Quick warning for some distressing images here. A male model from New York has slammed Germany's immigration policies after he was brutally attacked while defending 2 women in Dresden. Stay tuned to hear his heroic story and what he thinks. But first, let's get your news headlines with Cameron Walker.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB newsroom. And Nigel Farage has unveiled Reform UK's plans to deport all small boat migrants, warning migration now poses a genuine threat to public order. The Reform leader accused governments of failing the public and said outdated treaties must be scrapped.
The only way we will stop the boats is by detaining and deporting absolutely anyone that comes via that route.
His comments come as Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has accused Reform of reheating and recycling Tory plans on immigration.
He is not doing the thinking, we are. And just like we've seen with the Labour governments who didn't do their thinking in opposition, there'll be a disaster in government and in particular a disaster on the economy.
Food prices have surged at their fastest pace in 18 months. Chocolate, butter and eggs pushed grocery costs up 4.2% this month, hitting families already struggling with bills. But economist Vicky Price says there is at least one silver lining.
Non-food products went down by 0.8%, which is at least a bit of relief, particularly as people are going shopping for uniforms and things that they need for the children going back to school.
Well, those are the headlines for now. More at the top of the hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Now, most of today's showers are going to ease as we go through the evening, but then there's some heavy thundery rain arriving as we go through tomorrow. That's because there's a weather system waiting out in the Atlantic, and this is going to push its way in through the next 24 hours. Before this, we do have a couple of fronts lying across us, but these are just bringing the focus for some showers. Like I said though, most of those showers easing as we go through this evening and overnight, albeit some northern and western parts clinging on to a few showers for a little while longer. So most places having a largely dry night with some clear skies, under which it could turn a little fresh for some. Most towns and cities well staying into double figures, but some rural spots just about dropping into single figures. And then tomorrow we do have this wet and thundery weather that's coming in from the west. So quite early on, that's going to be pushing into parts of western, southwestern Wales, also across parts of Devon and Cornwall. A drier start further east across much of England. However, across Northern Ireland, it's a cloudy, wet start, some heavy bursts of rain. Watch out for some gusty winds through the morning rush hour as well. Whilst across much of Scotland, the heavy thundery rain will take a little while longer to reach here, but there could be a few showers around early on. That band of rain then does make its progress across the whole country. It's quite a narrow band of rain, but it's not moving especially quickly, so the rain shouldn't last particularly long, but we could see an hour or so of some heavy rain wherever you are. Just the further east you are, the longer it's going to take for that rain to arrive. There will also be some gusty winds, and the gusty winds, they'll add to a slightly fresher feel to things, with temperatures for many a few degrees down compared to today. That rain will eventually clear away towards the east as we go later on, with something sunnier, clearer following in behind, but a scattering of showers pushing in across parts of Northern Ireland. Plenty more showers to come as we go through the end of the week, and watch out, we could see some particularly wet and windy weather on Saturday. See you later.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Significant travel challenges exist across various locations. The A90 southbound at Teeling is closed due to a road incident. Diversions are advised. The M4 westbound exit slip at junction 40 in Tyebach is closed for electrical work. Diversions are in place. Cambridgeshire's M11 southbound entry slip at junction 12 is fully closed after a vehicle crossed the central reservation. In Shropshire, the A5 northbound near the A488 junction has a lane closed due to load spillage. And on the trains, East Midlands Railway reports major disruption between Kettering and Leicester. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Alex Armstrong. Just a brief comment here from Boo. Boo says, why are we planning to give them £2,500? I'm not happy about that. That's in response to Nigel Farage's plans to have, of course, a mass deportation strategy. Now, yeah, many of you are upset about that, and I totally understand it, but what else can we do? I think we're looking at, there's not many options left on the cards, and we've got to, these people have got to go somewhere, and we've got to do something to incentivise them, so maybe they've got the right idea, that will be seen, I guess. Anyway, shocking story here. A male model from New York has slammed Germany's immigration policies after he was brutally attacked while defending 2 women in Dresden. Just a warning, you might find these images distressing. John Rodent was stabbed multiple times with a 6-inch blade by a migrant who was trying to assault 2 women on public transport. He has now claimed mass immigration into Germany has undermined law and order in the country as well as its social structure. And John Rodent joins me now. John, thank you very much for joining me. You're an extremely brave man. Our audience are claiming you are a hero, and thank you so much for doing what you did. Listen, John, this situation in Europe, as you may have seen, was similar to the United States. We had a mass migration problem. European leaders are only starting to get a grip of this. What's your take on the situation? You've gone to Germany. I don't know whether it was for a trip or to move there, but tell us the circumstances that led to the event.
Originally, I had went to Germany to visit my guest father. I had spent a year abroad here in Dresden in 2022 to 2023, and I fell in love with the city from the second I got here. Now, that's also separate to the last 10 years, as I've been told since the accident. I've had hundreds of people reach out to me and give me the claims and their stresses about over the last 10 years. The immigration problem and the violence problem has been really rising and becoming a legitimate threat to everyday safety. People nowadays tell me that they are afraid to use the tram, and understandably so. Look at my face. I completely understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, indeed, John, and extremely brave what you did stepping in for those 2 women there. Do you have sympathy for people such as President Trump, who is on a mass deportations plan right now? He's claiming he had 0 illegal migrants entering the United States. Do you think these are the right policies and that Europe should be adopting similar policies?
I think that the German people would really appreciate some policies like that. I think the German people would really appreciate being able to feel safe on their own transportation systems. And I hope that Germany and the government of Germany and the people of Germany push for exactly that, more policy for more safety.
And John, were you shocked when were you overwhelmed perhaps when you saw Germany and when you got to Dresden and you saw the fabric of the society? Was something about that shocked you and saw these 2 women being assaulted? Was that a surprise to you here for seeing that here in Europe?
It was definitely a surprise to me. I never expected that night to turn into this, and I never expected to have to delay all the trips I had planned with my host father for the genuine visit I came here for, just to see Europe and the beauty of Europe. I never expected to spend that time in a hospital bed.
Indeed. John, could you just briefly give me the circumstances that led to you intervening with these 2 women as well, if you don't mind sharing it?
Of course. So I had entered the tram with my host brother and my friend, and we took seats right next to a woman at the time that was later going to be the one that was assaulted by that initial man. The man came over, started disturbing her, started harassing her, touching her. I stood up, intervened, vocalized the fact that I did not approve of what he was doing. I told him to stop. And at the time, my friends translated the language that I couldn't necessarily understand at the time in the tone that the man, the aggressor, was really stating it in, that they were getting through something or talking to each other about some problem. I sat back down. I was okay. I wasn't there looking for a fight. I wasn't there to start any conflicts. But when the woman stood up and the man came back yelling and screaming, he grabbed her, hit her with her fist, threw her down on the seat, and that's when I knew I had to intervene, and I did. I tried to maintain distance by extending my hand against the man, and he took that as a threat to violence and proceeded to hit me, and then I exchanged blows with him. He retreated backward. I tried to maintain distance, stay with my hands open, trying to protect the woman. She was my main priority, and her safety was my main priority. But he continued to try to attack me, and at that time, I heard a quick click. I looked to the right, and I saw a man that I had never seen before with a brutal expression on his face lift up his hand and cut me in the face with a knife.
John, were you expecting a knife to be pulled on you in this situation? Was that a big surprise as well?
It was definitely a big surprise. I never expected any time that I get on the tram and have to get into a knife altercation with somebody, because I'm in Europe. I know that people don't do that here, or at least Europeans don't. And I never had to deal with that problem before while I was here in 2022 to 2023. But since then, I've noticed firsthand and had to experience firsthand that this problem is only getting worse.
Indeed. We unfortunately, even here, John, we have a knife epidemic in Great Britain, which we are struggling with quite a lot. Listen, John, you are welcome. Anytime you visit the United Kingdom, please come and visit us at GB News. We'd love to have a chat with you. Just some of our audience here are saying you deserve a medal, and I couldn't agree more with you. Exceptionally brave man, and thank you for stepping in and looking after those two women. I'm sure they are eternally grateful for you doing what you did, and I'm sure your career is only going to go from strength to strength from here, John. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about this horrific case. John Rodent there, male model. Thank you very much. I'll get to some of your comments because you've all been writing in about this, and I'll get some of your comments very shortly. But let's first get some of your holiday sun forecast in our top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Well, there's plenty of sunny spells across Europe, but also some widespread thunderstorms developing. So across much of Madeira and the Canary Islands, a few showers here and breezy. Across Spain, fine with plenty of sunshine. But here are those thunderstorms with the risk of hail and lightning. Across Greece, much of the country seeing plenty of sunshine here. And as we go through the week, there'll still be some showers around, but also plenty of sunshine still, and temperatures up to 33.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
But, all right, let's move on, shall we? Gentlemen, are you checking your engines at home? Some men know more about Formula One than signs of prostate cancer. A new survey reveals 27% of men could name more F1 drivers than what the symptoms were for prostate cancer. Well, I can now speak with specialist Professor Carol Sikora. Carol, thank you very much for joining me. Listen, this is quite a shocking statistic. And, you know, prostate cancer is a big killer of men, and it can be sometimes a silent killer. What should we take away from this?
I think it's amazing. The article today in the Telegraph about it, that F1 is more commonly known about than prostate cancer. Quite frankly, a study 25 years ago in the British Medical Journal showed that 70% of men didn't know where the prostate gland was. Everybody over 70 is listening to this. About 65% of people over 70 actually have prostate cancer, but it won't cause them any trouble. And what we have to do is identify those cancers that are going to cause trouble, like Mr. Hoy's cancer, for example, that's causing him a lot of trouble. We need to look at young people with aggressive cancers and pick those up early. And that seems a reasonable campaign.
Yes, and what should we do, Professor? Because, I mean, many people point to the government that they need to do an awareness campaign or something like that. What can be done?
I think we could introduce PSA screening for those men that want to, and it's there. If you go to your GP and say you've read about it, you'd like to do a PSA test, it's very simple. You can do other blood tests at the same time.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
welcome back to the Martin Daubney Show. I've got some disturbing imagery here, haven't I? Brits have been warned to brace for a plague of rats this winter as hunters report catching rodents more than 20 inches long. Disgusting. And before we get to our next guest, just some warning. Viewers may find the footage a little disturbing. So let's speak with Chief Verminator of the Yorkshire Rat Pack, Kieran Palmer of Vermicure Pest Control. Kieran, thank you for joining me. Some creatures I don't mind seeing on my screen, those two lovely hounds there. Kieran, you are doing God's work at the moment, catching all these rats in Britain. We seem to constantly have rat stories at the moment. What is fueling this rat crisis?
A lot more climate change, weather changing, and a lot more food increase waste. Do you know what I mean? It's quite a lot.
So is it the hot summer? Is it the hot summer's been good for rats?
A milder climate, warmer winter. A lot more winters are getting more warmer, so it is putting a massive implement onto it.
And how? What do you? So you're obviously you're a chief rat catcher. Tell us a little bit what that means. And it looks like you've got one of your assistants with you, so the dogs help you, do they?
This is Poppy, and so obviously Yorkshire Rat Pack and Vermicure Pest Control, we specialise using obviously working dogs and obviously more humane methods other than rodenticides and stuff. But yeah, it's trained them to find them, eliminate them, and that's obviously one of the videos there that were in most of the jobs that I'm getting with rats in properties like that are very clean houses.
Right. Because there is, Kieran, there's this fear of rats in society, isn't there, that they carry. I think this might go back all the way back to the plague, because we're obviously very worried that rats contain things like the plague and they contain diseases. Is that still true in modern Britain?
They still have a lot of diseases. Obviously, Wales disease, leptospirosis being the main one, have a virus and stuff like that. There is a lot of different ones, but plagues, obviously, it's been and gone. There is quite a few other diseases, though, but it's getting worse. I would say it's getting worse with rats, and I don't think it's getting any better.
Yeah, because Kieran, you've been catching quite big rats. They're not small, are they? How big are we talking?
I've actually got one here if you want to see it.
Okay, yeah. Warning to the viewers. Warning to the viewers. Switch off now if you don't like rats.
Yeah.
Or cover your eyes. Don't switch off. Cover your eyes.
I'll just get it now. It's just in a bag.
Yeah, this is not something I expected to do in my career, but here we go.
I'm getting a lot bigger, obviously.
That is a big one. That is a big one.
Fair size. Obviously,
how big is that? Just for reference, Kieran, how big is that roughly?
That one there is 16.5 inches. That was caught this morning,
Just this morning.
Yeah.
And we've had this massive increase. I can't remember exactly. Is it 23% just in London? Now, other parts of the UK are also experiencing this increase. Are you seeing your work go up? Are you getting more work as a result?
Yeah, I have, because obviously I mainly specialise in rodents anyways, but but I can't just take credit for it. You see them lads in that picture, obviously.
You can see, these are the rats you've been catching.
There's quite a lot of people that do it with us. So it's not just one person, so I can't just take credit, but they are getting a lot more bigger. As you can see, 19 inch there, head to tail.
Yeah, wow, look at that. Massive creatures. And Kieran, you know, obviously we saw in Birmingham the bin crisis earlier this year. Is it, again, many people tell me that their bins are being collected less and less regularly as councils are saving money, trying to cut back. Is that another result of this rat epidemic?
I would say that obviously fly tipping, what you've just touched on there, it's quite horrendous in this day and age, obviously. There's a lot more. I don't know, councils charging to put waste, I don't know, I couldn't tell you, but there's a lot more fly tipping. We've noticed a lot more buildings, you know, your drainage systems with your clear pipes and your cast iron. That tends to, 50 years ago it wasn't as bad as that, but now it's all crumbling and stuff. Obviously there's a lot more tighter regulations for pest controllers with your rodenticides. There's new laws coming in as of next year. You're not allowed to put a lot of baits around buildings and stuff like that. But it's mainly climate change, obviously human habitats, and obviously tighter restrictions on pest controllers.
Indeed as well. And why is it during the winter we expect to see all these rats go into homes? Is it because it's getting colder and they need to find somewhere to nest? Is that what it is?
Yeah, but obviously you've got your farms and stuff like that. They tend to cut the fields. Obviously, rats tend to come in more. Your drainage systems, a lot of people through summer are on holiday doing overtime, so the systems are a lot more lower. But wintertime, everybody's with their jackets on, sat in their houses warming up. Do you know what I mean? They don't really event out. So that's a massive...
Kieran, just a final brief question to you then. What is it can do at home to try and avoid having rats in their house? What sort of precautions can they take?
To me, obviously, I'd always go around my property and check if there's any ingress points. Drainage, get your drains checked once every so often. And try and reduce food in your gardens and fly tip. A lot of people are putting these fancy bird feeders out, but you know yourself with rats, that does encroach in fat balls and stuff like that.
Indeed. Well, Kieran Palmer, thank you so much for joining me, Chief Verminator of Yorkshire Rat Pack there. Thank you very much, Kieran. Lovely to speak to you. I can't say I enjoyed seeing the rats too much, but there we have it. There we go. Lots more coming up on the show. Can people trust Reform UK on immigration? And Reform UK MP Richard Tice joins me next to talk about that mass deportations plan. Of course, we'll be digging into that, including the response from all the big party leaders. Kemi Badenoch is saying that someone copied her homework. We know she doesn't like snitches, do we? Anyway, this is GB News, Britain's news channel. Here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Now, most of today's showers are going to ease as we go through the evening, but then there's some heavy thundery rain arriving as we go through tomorrow. That's because there's a weather system waiting out in the Atlantic, and this is going to push its way in through the next 24 hours. Before this, we do have a couple of fronts lying across us, but these are just bringing the focus for some showers. Like I said, though, most of those showers easing as we go through this evening and overnight, albeit some northern and western parts clinging on to a few showers for a little while longer. So most places having a largely dry night with some clear skies, under which it could turn a little fresh for some. Most towns and cities well staying into double figures, but some rural spots just about dropping into single figures. And then tomorrow we do have this wet and thundery weather that's coming in from the west. So quite early on, that's going to be pushing into parts of western, southwestern Wales, also across parts of Devon and Cornwall. A drier start further east across much of England. However, across Northern Ireland, it's a cloudy, wet start, some heavy bursts of rain. Watch out for some gusty winds through the morning rush hour as well. Whilst across much of Scotland, the heavy thundery rain will take a little while longer to reach here, but there could be a few showers around early on. That band of rain then does make its progress across the whole country. It's quite a narrow band of rain, but it's not moving especially quickly, so the rain shouldn't last particularly long, but we could see an hour or so of some heavy rain wherever you are. Just the further east you are, the longer it's going to take for that rain to arrive. There will also be some gusty winds, and the gusty winds, they'll add to a slightly fresher feel to things, with temperatures for many a few degrees down compared to today. That rain will eventually clear away towards the east as we go later on, with something sunnier, clearer following in behind, but a scattering of showers pushing in across parts of Northern Ireland. Plenty more showers to come as we go through the end of the week, and watch out, we could see some particularly wet and windy weather on Saturday. See you later.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A90 southbound at Teeling is closed due to an incident. Motorists should follow the signed diversion route. In Durham, the A66 westbound between the A1M and the A67 is closed due to a collision. In Shropshire, the northbound A5 junction with the A488 faces disruption from a load spillage, causing a lane closure. An accident involving a vehicle crossing the central reservation has closed the M11 southbound entry slip at junction 12. And on the trains, East Midlands Railway reports major disruption between Kettering and Leicester, with cross-country delays between Leeds and Sheffield. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Well, good afternoon. It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show. I'm Alex Armstrong, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and across the United Kingdom.
You come to the UK illegally, you will be detained and deported and never, ever allowed to stay. Period.
Nigel Farage warns the migrant crisis is a threat to public order, and he's vowed to deport 600,000 migrants in his first term. But Liberal Dem leader Ed Davey says the plan for mass deportations crumbles under scrutiny.
Looks like Nigel Farage wants to follow his hero Vladimir Putin and pull out of the EHCR. I think Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave.
Yes, while Tory leader Kemi Badenoch says Nigel Farage has copied her homework.
About a deportation bill in May, the stuff that actually works and what he said has come from there. But the truth is, he is not doing the thinking, we are.
Children as young as 10 are among dozens of youths being put on NHS fat jabs. I'll be joined by the weight loss motivation master who says it's sickening. Podgy kids should do some more exercise. And Brits are bracing for a horrendous winter of rat infestations as 20-inch giant rodents are set to invade homes. I'll be joined by the Brummy Verminator who says he's catching rats the size of dogs. And fighters are laying a saucy smackdown at the World Gravy Wrestling Championships. 1,500 litres of Lancashire gravy was used, enough for 15,000 roast dinners. I'll be getting down and dirty with the 6-time world champion Joel Hicks. And I have to keep clarifying, I am not wrestling Joe Hicks, just to make that really, really clear. I've done some weird things on TV, that is not one of them. I want to hear from you, send your comments in, gbnews.com/yours say, but let's get your news headlines with Cameron Walker first.
Thanks, Alex. Good afternoon. It is 2 minutes past 5. I'm Cameron Walker in the GB Newsroom. Nigel Farage has unveiled Reform UK's plans to deport all small boat migrants, warning migration now poses a genuine threat to public order. He said,
Today we launch Operation Restoring Justice. And as far as the people of this country is concerned, frankly, these measures can't come soon enough.
He says only mass deportations and a ban on asylum claims for illegal arrivals will restore trust. Speaking earlier, the Reform leader accused successive governments of failing the public and said outdated treaties must be scrapped.
The only way we will stop the boats is by detaining and deporting absolutely anyone that comes via that route. And if we do that, the boats will stop coming within days. If you come to the UK illegally, you will be detained and deported and never, ever allowed to stay, period.
But Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has accused Reform of reheating and recycling Tory plans on immigration.
Nigel Farage is copying our homework. We put out a deportation bill in May. The stuff that actually works and what he said has come from there. But the truth is, he is not doing the thinking, we are. And just like we've seen with the Labour governments who didn't do their thinking in opposition, there'll be a disaster in government and in particular, a disaster on the economy.
The Reform leader also pledged to pull Britain out of the key international agreements, including the European Convention on Human Rights. Earlier, Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook told us the Labour government would welcome discussions about changing how the ECHR operates, but would not scrap it.
We don't think it's in our national interest to withdraw completely, put ourselves in the same camp as two other countries, Russia and Belarus. But that is not to say that we don't think the Convention needs reform. We're making the case for reform in Europe. The Justice Secretary was at the Council of Europe in June doing just that. And we are looking about how the Convention is implemented domestically.
And it has just been announced Sir Andy Murray has become an official patron of the charity set up in the aftermath of the Dunblane massacre. The Dunblane Centre said it marks the first patronage the star has accepted since retiring from professional tennis last year. The charity was established after the shooting at Dunblane Primary School in 1996, where the tennis star was a pupil. A gunman shot and killed 16 pupils and their teacher in the gym hall before turning the gun on himself. Sir Andy said he is proud to be joining the team. Well, those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker. More in half an hour.
Thank you there, Cameron. Well, Nigel Farage has warned that growing anger at illegal migration in Britain is a threat to public order. That's as he revealed his plans for mass deportations. Earlier this afternoon, Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey claimed Nigel Farage's deportation plan crumbles under scrutiny.
It looks like Nigel Farage wants to follow his hero Vladimir Putin and pull out of the EHCR. I think Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave at that. You know, the truth is, it was Farage's Brexit that caused the small boats. Before Brexit, we could send back any illegal immigrant coming over in a small boat. Actually, Nigel Farage should have apologised today.
Meanwhile, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has accused Mr Farage of copying her party's policies.
Nigel Farage is copying our homework. We put out a deportation bill in May. The stuff that actually works and what he said has come from there. But the truth is, he is not doing the thinking, we are. And just like we've seen with the Labour governments who didn't do their thinking in opposition, there'll be a disaster in government and in particular, a disaster on the economy.
Well, let's bring in Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Richard, thank you so much for joining me. Of course, many viewers getting in touch today to ask questions about your deportations plan. The big one that I'm seeing here is, what will you do with people if you don't know their origin in the first place? How will you send people back if you don't know where they're coming from?
Well, the reality is everybody knows their origin, and there is much more data on that, frankly, than the sort of misinformation that's spouted out there. And we will remove people either to their place of origin or to a third country. We'll negotiate deals with a range of third countries so that you're not overexposed, like the ludicrous Tory party that put all their bets on one option, which was Rwanda. And that was brought down partly by their own party. I mean, it's laughable to hear Kemi Badenoch, part of the previous disastrous Tory regime, trying to cast aspersions on what is a brilliant plan launched today. We've got to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. We've got to leave and scrap our own Human Rights Act brought in 1998. And we've got to derogate from the UN 51 Convention and other treaties that the lefty lawyers, the human rights crowd, have used to ludicrous degrees to keep illegal migrants here. And our message is very simple. If you're here illegally, we're coming for you and we will remove you, so you're best to leave beforehand. Take our voluntary offer beforehand. We're the only party that tells it as it is, and guess what? That's why we're leading in every national poll.
OK, and Andy also wrote into me, he said, do you still, he wants to ask you specifically, actually, ask Tice if he still intends to turn the boats around and tow them back to France if need be. Is that a lever you're willing to pull if nothing else works?
Yeah, I've been very clear for a very long time. We're legally entitled to do that under the UN 1982 Convention of the Law at Sea. And France are in breach of their legal obligations. Why are we sending them any money without any performance requirements is absolutely beyond me. All of these options are open to us. We will get this done. And I think the British people trust Nigel. And as Nigel said today, there is no one who has been on this issue more than Nigel, no one more determined to defend our borders, protect our sovereignty. And all of us are absolutely committed that it's the protection of British citizens, British women, British girls, that is the role of the British government. And sometimes, do you know what? You do business with people you may not like. Sometimes leadership is difficult. And so if that means that we have to come and enter into arrangements with other regimes that might feel a bit uncomfortable, well, I actually think that our job is to protect British citizens, and we can't organise the regime organise how every regime around the world runs themselves. That's their problem. Our problem is dealing with the issue here in our country, and it is so serious, as Nigel touched on. Those of us that actually get out there in the real world, knock on doors, we know that the fury, the rage, the anger is bubbling. It is bubbling over, and that's why we've got to deal with this.
Indeed, indeed. We had Dominic Grieve on the show earlier on, Richard. He wasn't very appraising of your plan. He says you're going to have a big fight on your hands with the courts, and he believes that Keir Starmer's approach to it is a far better one because it will actually make the reforms necessary, and you have to leave. What do you make of those comments, Richard?
It's laughable. How's Keir Starmer's plan working out? Smash the gangs. He's encouraged the gangs. The numbers are up 50,000, even since his 17 in, 1 out mad policy in the last couple of weeks. In the last couple of days, we've had about 1,000 illegals have continued the invasion into the United Kingdom. And what our plan is exactly designed to do is to stop dreadful lawyers like Dominic Grieve and others from continuing their trade of keeping dangerous criminals in this country. That's what we will do. That's why everything is designed to prevent the lawyers being able to go to the courts. It's exactly that level of detail we've gone into, using our own lawyers, using our own barristers, and I think people should trust us. And if we get a sizable majority, then we can drive this through the Houses of Parliament because the people will have spoken. And
brilliant.
That's the key thing.
Punchy stuff as ever. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, thank you so much for joining me. Well, we're now going to go live to GB News' political correspondent Catherine Forster, live in Oxford Airport there. Catherine, over to you.
Yes, well, Richard Tice talking about dreadful lawyers. Reform says that they have to pull out of the ECHR because basically the lawyers here are hell-bent on encouraging people, supporting their claims. And Nigel Farage said, look, you know, we've seen in Sweden, we've seen in Denmark, a grip on illegal migration within the ECHR, but we can't do that here because of the lawyers that we have in our system. Dominic Grieve, of course, as you heard earlier, former Attorney General, taking the very opposite view. But it just strikes me on how far the conversation and the national mood has shifted. reform, talking about, yes, detaining and deporting everybody that arrives on small boats. And of course, that really would be a deterrent, a real deterrent. Sadly lacking. Nigel Farage says that people are just being rewarded at the moment. But they're also talking about getting rid of over 1 million people who are here illegally already. Mass deportations. That is a shift from reform.
Catherine, I'm very sorry to interrupt you, Catherine, because we're now going to cross live to the White House where Donald Trump is holding a cabinet meeting.
We have a great relationship, but that was an amazing trip. So they're funding the entire war. We're not funding anything. I think it's an important point to make because a lot of people don't understand that. And we will continue to do that, and we're trying to get as much as we can for them. They want the American product. The American military product is by far the best in the world, and that's what they want to get. They have lots of options, but that's what they want to get. So the factories are doubling up and tripling up where they make the Patriots and other really, you could say, defense and offensive weapons. The wages for blue-collar workers are now rising at the fastest rate in 60 years, which is so important to all of us around this table. The average American worker has already seen a $500 wage increase this year, and there's no inflation because there's been decreases, tremendous decreases with, thanks to Doug and Chris, and some of the people, the great job they've done with energy. Thank you very much. And Chris, thank you very much. I see you down close to $60 a barrel, and you'll be breaking that pretty soon. And that has a huge impact. So we have groceries are down. Energy is way down. Energy is way down. It was $4 and $5 for a gallon of gas. Think of that for gasoline. And now it's probably $2.25. There are some places it's $2. It broke $2 at a couple of locations in the South. In places like California where they charge such high taxes, it's higher, but it's still much lower than what it was a year ago. So energy is way down. Groceries are way down. Eggs are way down. Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. You've done a great job. Appreciate it. When we came in, the eggs were through the roof. They were 4 times higher than they've ever been. And my first question from you people, what are you going to do with eggs? I said, what's the problem with eggs? That was caused by Biden, or whoever was operating the auto pen actually caused it, I guess, because I don't think he knew too much about eggs. Factories are booming compared to before I took office. Domestic auto production is going to be, it's going to be so thrilling in 2 years when you see the numbers, because they're building plants all over the country. They're all coming in because of tariffs. They don't want to build, they don't want to pay the tariffs. And if they build their plant here, they don't pay the tariffs. And they're pouring into our country, and you know about AI and you know about other, but the auto plants, you know, that's the good old-fashioned stuff that I love. The auto plants are pouring into the United States of America. They're coming from Mexico, they're coming from Canada, and they're coming from Europe, all over Europe. And it's been pretty amazing. So factories are booming. And when they actually open, you know, right now they're booming in terms of construction. This is something given to me by Mark Zuckerberg. And you'll see this is AI now. These are, I never understood. I said, well, you know, because I built shopping centers, and for $50 million, you can build a very nice shopping center. So I never understood when they said $50 billion for a plant. I said, what the hell kind of a plant is that? But when you look at this, you understand why it's 50 billion. So this is one he's building in Louisiana. That's Meta, Facebook, as people understand it to be. But look at that, that's the size of Manhattan. So that's superimposed over the island of Manhattan. It takes up a big part of Manhattan. I think they say 81% of Manhattan. So these are big things, and they're going up. A lot of them are going up now. I don't know that big. Actually, Mark is building 4 of them, and others are building similar places. And when these things open up, I'll tell you what, our country, we're leading China now in AI, substantially leading China. And the reason is because we're letting them build their own electrical facilities. We would need double the energy that if you take all of the electricity that we produce right now in this country, you'd have to multiply it times 2 or maybe 3 times. So 3 times more than we have right now for everything, to operate your toaster and everything else, okay? 3 times more. And the way we're able to succeed, because China goes out and builds these massive plants. They're right now building 58 coal, in this case, almost all coal-fired plants. And coal is back with this country too, by the way. You know, there's a reason they use it, because it's good. It works for them. And we call it clean coal. We don't call it coal. We call it clean, even very clean coal. But we have coal going up. We have nuclear going up. Nuclear is very much in vogue now. It's safe and inexpensive and great. We don't allow windmills. We're not allowing any windmills to go up. I mean, unless there's a legal situation where somebody committed to it a long time ago, we don't allow windmills. And we don't want the solar panels that I was speaking with the secretary about, because they take up, you know, thousands of acres of our farmland. You see these big, ugly patches of black plastic that comes from China. And the solar is, you know, I like solar in some ways, but for firing up your big plants, it doesn't work. It's very unstable, but it really takes up your farm. The farmers are saying, you know, they're building these massive blotches in the middle of the fields all over the country. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. So we're not heavy into that at all. And windmills, we're just not going to allow them. They're ruining our country. They're ruining everyone. If you look at, I hate to mention countries, but you look at the UK, what's happened at UK, they have energy costs have gone through the roof. It's because of wind. They want to do everything, close up the northern parts of the country. They have oil that's tremendous, and they closed it up, and they've been building windmills all over the place. And I tell them, you're my friends, but man, you're going to have a bad awakening very soon. It's going to be very bad. They're ugly. They don't work. They kill your birds. They're bad for the environment. And if you look at them from a house, your house is worth less than 50%. So I'm trying to have people learn about wind real fast, and I think I've done a good job, but not good enough, because some countries are still trying, and they're destroying themselves. Those are countries that are really destroying themselves. I hope they get back to fossil fuel, because right now, Chris, whether we like it or not, fossil fuel is the thing that works. And then you can add nuclear with it and other things, but fossil fuel is what works if we're going to fire up those big monster factories. But if you look at comparing everything before I took office, domestic auto production is up 18,000 cars a month. And we haven't even started yet, because a lot of these plants aren't built. It's up 18,000 because Ford, General Motors, and a couple of others, Stellantis, they're taking their existing plants, and they're, as quickly as they can, they're adding on to them. So when their plants open, because they're building big, modern, beautiful auto plants. But think of that, we're up 18,000 cars a month, and essentially all they've done is try and utilize their space correctly as their big plants open up. It's going to be, I hope they remember that it was this way. I hope this table gets a lot of the credit for what's happening. It gets all of the credit, because this would have never happened. We were going out of business in every way. We were losing. All the car plants were leaving this country. Now they're all coming back in, and they are coming from Canada, and they are coming from Mexico, but they're coming from Germany. They're coming from all over the world. Domestic steel production is up by 100,000 tons of steel a week. We have a 50% tariff on steel, aluminum, and various other things. Copper just got brought into the picture, and that means people are going to want to make steel here. We just made a deal with U.S. Steel. As you know, we have an outside company come in, spend $17 billion on building new plants, new everything. It's great, and it stays right here in America. So we're doing amazingly well on steel, and domestic oil production is up by more than 300,000 barrels a day. That's a lot of barrels, and you're going to be talking about that in a second, I think, Chris and Doug. These two people have done a fantastic job, and we have We have the oil price down to about $62 a barrel. So just so you understand, because a lot of you like to talk about costs and prices, but I watch so much fake information. Product costs are down. Energy is way down. Energy brings things down. You know, with energy, that's what happened with Biden. He stopped our program, and then he went back to it when he realized that it looked like you're going to be paying numbers that nobody's ever seen, like $7 a gallon. You're going to pay $7 a gallon. They were up to $7.5. So then he immediately went back to the Trump plan that they terminated. But it was too late for them. It was too late. They blew it. They had a great thing going. I gave them something great, and they blew it. Since the inauguration, we've created over 500,000 new private jobs. And if you notice, when the numbers come out, government jobs are going down and private jobs are coming up. And that's what really fuels the country. It's easy to hire people and pay them for doing something that maybe is not very productive. But government jobs are down, actually substantially down, and private jobs are way up. And these are the jobs that make money, create a better life. Meanwhile, we've reduced the number of federal bureaucrats by 84,000. So we got rid of 84,000, and I think the job numbers, you're going to see the new job numbers are going to be through the roof because of all of the different businesses that are moving into our country. And not just production businesses, autos and AI, but any business you can think of in the world of furniture, as an example. North Carolina, I went there many times when I built a lot of hotels and things, and I'd go to North Carolina, I'd buy the greatest, they were the greatest, most talented people. And then China came along and took all of those jobs away. If they would have tariffed them, China wouldn't have taken any of the jobs. We had presidents that, honestly, and I like some of them, but they didn't know what the hell they were doing from a business standpoint, from running the country. And North Carolina, the most talented woodworkers that you've ever seen. I'd be there and I'd watch them. I'd say, I'd like to have a rail in that chair. Maybe can you fancy it up a little bit? How about this, sir? And they'd hand me a thing. It was like they were artists. They were unbelievable. And that business was stolen from us by others, not only China, but by others. All of a sudden, you're ordering your furniture from China. And it was not even close to being as good, but they couldn't compete with it. If we would have said it costs 100% or 200% tariff, you wouldn't have lost one job. It's so sad. But we're going to rebuild North Carolina furniture and other places, South Carolina too, to a lesser extent. They make furniture. But furniture, we're going to put a very substantial tariff on. We've already announced it. It'll be done pretty quickly. And when that happens, everyone's going to start. I just tell you, North Carolina, go out and start getting the grandchildren and the children, start teaching them, because some of those incredible artists that I knew as young people, they're older people now, but they still have the talent and they have time left. But they're going to be teaching their sons and their daughters and their grandchildren. And it's going to be a beautiful thing to see. It's going to happen like magic. It's going to happen without question. It's not like, gee, I hope it happens. It's going to happen. The results of Ford that just announced it's going to create 4,000 new jobs, American jobs. Hyundai, 14,000 jobs. General Motors is moving production of the Chevy Blazer and Equinox from Mexico back to the United States where it belongs. Don't forget, we lost 55% of our auto production over the last 35 years. 55%. We were the auto capital of the world. Like there was nobody even think about challenging us. We lost 55% of it to Mexico, Canada, China, a lot to China, and other countries. And it's all coming back. We will be bigger. A couple of years, we'll be bigger than we ever were. We'll be more dominant. We'll be bigger. We make great product, too. We're starting to make really great product. We're going to be bigger than we ever were. We're going to be at the level that it was when we were the only one that really, we sold to the world. And we're going to be back selling to ourselves and other parts of the world. It's not going to be the same, but it's going to be equally as important as it was in the heyday 30 years ago. But we lost more than 50% of the automaking capacity. In fact, the unions, the auto unions, as you know, the top guy didn't know me, didn't like me, and now he likes me. He says, man, I can't believe what Trump has done. But the auto workers voted for me. They understood better than anybody else. The auto workers, the Teamsters voted for me. Teamsters are great. They all voted for me. No Republican has ever gotten the support of the Teamsters and the auto workers. And now the head of the auto workers, I mean, it's so amazing. I watch them on television there. They can't even believe what happened. And I told them all what was going to happen. We secured new market access for American agricultural exports all over the world. Our secretary is doing a great job. Thank you, Brooke. And we have negotiated historic trade deals with the United Kingdom, China, Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, who was here yesterday, and the European Union. Foreign nations are now paying hundreds of billions of dollars straight into our treasury, and numbers that nobody's ever seen before. As you know, we made trade deals with a lot of countries, and many of those countries, just to be able to sit at the table, are paying us hundreds of billions of dollars. We made a trade deal with the European Union. They were rough on us for a long time. And now we have a very good deal. We made that with them. Trillions of dollars is coming into our country. Trillions. Far beyond billions, trillions of dollars. Wouldn't you say, Scott?
Yes, sir.
And in a short period of time, they have to buy $750 billion worth of our energy product. Energy is great. We have more than anybody else, so we're using it. But the European Union is a done deal, and Japan is done. And I heard there was a problem with South Korea, but we met yesterday, and they're done. We didn't do anything. We just kept the same deal. He honored the deal. They wanted to see if, well, I don't even want to say it, but they wanted to see if they could do something. But they honored the deal, which is nice. And we cut the previous record-setting trade deficit, I hear just came out. We cut it in half already. We haven't even, so we've only been here really for a few months because, you know, it takes you a little while to fix up the Oval Office and do those things, prepare for the battle, right? So we really only been here for a very short period of time, and we cut the trade deficit in half. Is that right? That's fantastic. I didn't even think we were going to do that. And remember, these are things that are being built. These things are, you know, all these numbers up here, they're not open yet. When they open, you're going to see things happen in the United States that nobody's ever seen before, including our country in its heyday. And I had the greatest economy in the history of our country my first 4 years, despite COVID, which was a very unfortunate situation for the whole world. We did a great job with it, never got the credit for the job we did. Operation Warp Speed, people say, is one of the greatest achievements ever in politics or in the military, because it was almost a military procedure. But everybody, including Putin, said that Operation Warp Speed, what you did with that, nobody can believe it. And we did a great job, but it was a horrible, horrible pall over our country. We had a very dark cloud over the world. That was a very, very bad thing that came out of Wuhan, which I said it came out of Wuhan. That's where it came from. And China suffered greatly, but everybody did. But we did a good job with that, as good as you can possibly do, and we came back, and now we're stronger than ever before. If I didn't win this election, this country was gone. I'm telling you, economically it was gone. None of the things that we're talking about would have happened. The whole world was robbing us blind. Friend and foe. They were stealing our jobs, our money, our factories. They were stealing everything. We would have been a shell. We would have been a bankrupt, broken shell. And that's the way it is, but we're doing just the opposite. Stronger than we've ever been. Last month, in a landmark achievement, I also proudly signed the largest working-class tax cuts in American history. So the bill that, I'm not going to use the term great, big, beautiful, that was good for getting it approved, but it's not good for explaining to people what it's all about. It's a massive tax cut for the middle class. It's a massive tax cut for jobs. And it's, I mean, think of it, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. So seniors, I don't know how you can vote for anybody else. And, you know, just think of that. And no tax on overtime. So you work overtime, you don't have to pay tax on overtime. That's good. The Democrats don't know what they're going to do. So they have like this soundbite. You know, they have all these sound bites. They send it out. I don't know. Some guy sends out a word, and everybody uses it, including the fake news. Some of you are here right now. I'm looking at you. And it's death. They use the word death. No, it's actually life. It's almost like a newborn life. It's not death. That's their soundbite. The bill is death. It's not. We strengthen Social Security. We strengthen Medicare, Medicaid. The job we've done on Social Security is, if the Democrats got in, Social Security is over because the country's going to fail. There won't be any Social Security. And I made that pledge to you. We're going to take care of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And we're doing that in spades because the country is becoming so successful again. And it hasn't been this successful. I think in the end, it will never have been this successful. I don't think it'll even be close with what's happening. Every American is seeing a tax cut as a result of the bill. The average police officer will keep an extra $1,000 a year at least in overtime, and the average waiter or waitress will keep nearly $2,000 extra in the fact that they would have had to pay that kind of money on tips. And I never realized that the government was so strong on that. But waitresses, waiters would tell me that the government would go after them. Like, it was horrible. That's how it all started with me. It just was incredible. And the biggest thing was, again, the $4 trillion that they found. They said, well, that was nice. They should have announced it. I could have told them that. And I don't know. It should be simple. But a lot of people didn't understand it. Actually, a lot of good people didn't understand it. But now they're saying, you know, Trump was right. They'd never seen anything like this. And I don't know what it is, Scott. They didn't understand what we were trying to explain to them was going to happen. Everybody's moving back to the United States because they don't want to pay a tax. If they're not here, they have to pay a tax. And it didn't seem that complicated, but it's working at a level that nobody can imagine. You know, this is working $4 trillion, but that's a big number. It's a number that nobody ever heard of before. But $4 trillion is exciting. But that's nothing compared to what's happening, because these places haven't even opened yet. Some of them haven't even started hiring yet. They're under construction. So it's construction jobs, but it's not the big number, and the big numbers.
OK, you can hear there Trump hailing his economic record. And I think it's worth just putting this into context, to a British context for you. And this is why it's so important. This is why we show what's happening in America, because, you know, he's talking about car production. They're going back up. Car production here is down 11% in the United Kingdom. He's talking about the biggest tax cut for the middle classes ever. We've got the biggest tax rises ever in the UK. He was talking about the cost of eggs. That really was a big part of what he was one of his election issues there. He was talking about this the inflation costs on eggs in America. He said they were 4 times higher when he got into office. Well, now they're down. But here, of course, in the United Kingdom, eggs are up 4.9% because of inflation. He's talking about the energy in America, how he's sort of pushing aside green energy nonsense. Well, of course, we're pushing that here in the UK. Our energy production is down 6.5%. Steel production up, he's saying 1,500% there. Steel production, of course, is down here in the United Kingdom, down 29%. And of course, we're starting to nationalise our steel industries. All production in America up. Production in the United Kingdom down for 11th consecutive year. This is not looking good. When you see the contrast of what's happening in America and you see we're bracing more here for more economic woes in the autumn, it really does show you the stark difference, doesn't it? Well, anyway, let's return to Nigel Farage's deportation plan and speak to Labour MP for Stoke-on-Central, Gareth Snell. Gareth, thank you very much for joining me. Look, the mass deportation today, the plan by Nigel Farage and Reform UK has been received by opponent parties such as yourself with a little bit of scepticism. But it's worth noting that this is the issue that has captured the attention of the British public. 7 out of 10 people in the United Kingdom don't believe Keir Starmer's doing a good job on immigration. Are you falling behind?
Well, good afternoon. I don't think we're falling behind, but I understand and accept and agree with the country when they say they're frustrated. I think every Labour MP, every Labour minister is frustrated with the situation that we inherited and are working in any way that we can to try and bring those numbers down, to make those crossings fewer and also deal with the huge backlog of asylum cases that was left on the table of the Home Secretary on her first day in office.
Well, indeed, but Reform UK here are going quite far. They're saying in order to get on top of this crisis, we need to leave these treaties, we need to have a border command, we need to have deportations up to 600,000. At the moment, the best you guys are offering, really, is this one-in, one-out deal with France, where we haven't even seen that start, as far as I'm aware, and that will only be a handful of people every year, nowhere near the amount that are coming in. How can you claim to have a grip on this crisis when Nigel Farage is putting out a relatively comprehensive plan?
Well, I would argue that Nigel's plan is not comprehensive. It sounds good for the purposes of headlines, but where's the detail? Where's he going to talk about the RAF bases? What's the cost going to be? How is he going to do these things unilaterally without engaging in international talks? And I would dispute your claim that we aren't doing anything. There have been 35,000 returns of people who have no right to be in the UK since the general election. That includes 5,000 people who were foreign national offenders. There are still 10,000 foreign national offenders in our prisons that the Lord Chancellor is working to ensure can be deported. We're looking at a deport now, appeal later system for those people that do cause crime. We're also working to bring down the operating models of the smugglers to get in here. So, there have been 12,000 crossings that have been stopped from happening because of our cooperation with the European Union. And, it's quite an easy soundbite to say, let's just leave the ECHR, but we are going to have to work within the confines of international law to do. We may choose that we want to leave, but the countries that we then need to work with for returns agreement will still be members. So I think where the Home Secretary, the Lord Chancellor and the Prime Minister have been absolutely right is to say we want to reform those systems so that they work for everybody, because this is a problem that is coming onto our shores, but it's a problem that's being faced by our European neighbours on the continent.
Well, talk about that 35,000 number of people who have no right to be here. Of course, only 5,000, as you correctly said there, are from small boat migrants. Most of them aren't from countries such as Afghanistan, Eritrea and Iraq and Iran. How is the Prime Minister going to tackle that issue? Because there's been a lot of criticism at Reform's plan to send migrants back to those countries today, but the Prime Minister himself has said he's exploring sending migrants back to Afghanistan, so perhaps that criticism isn't quite upheld when it comes under scrutiny.
No, but I think the Prime Minister's plan, and it's one that he's outlined in the Commons on numerous times, is to have a sensible programme that actually meets the bars of international law so they are sustainable. Because we do have to think about who's running the countries where people are fleeing from. We do have to think about what's the impact on our standing around the world and what that means for us in terms of people that stand up and agree with international law.
Gareth, can I just pause there for a second? Because on this international courts issue, today Nigel Farage has accused the Prime Minister of being on the side of international courts over the British people. And what you're telling me there is very much in line with that thinking, because British people want to be prioritised in this country. They want to be put first. They feel like Labour's obsession, and Keir Starmer being a lawyer, his obsession with international law is putting British people at risk. That's why we're seeing these protests up and down the country, because people feel unsafe. At what point do you say, enough with the international law, I want British people to be prioritised, let's get on and start deporting people and ignore international law?
But that international law of the ECHR protects British people as much as it protects anybody else. So I don't agree with your analogy that suggests that somehow international law.
There's quite common consensus, Gareth. There's quite common consensus that the ECHR articles are being taken advantage of by illegal migrants in this country. That's quite a common consensus amongst British people, Gareth.
Which is why the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary and the Lord Chancellor have said what we need to do is work with our neighbours that are also signatories to the ECHR to reform the ECHR, because when it was set up in a very different time under very different circumstances. We need to make sure that it fits the modern situation that we find ourselves in today, and by working together with our European neighbours to come up with the reforms that we want, it means that it still gives those basic human right protections, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to a family life, all those things that we as British citizens take for granted and want to keep protected, but without them being able to be abused by people that shouldn't be in the country for their own purposes.
Well, just very, very briefly on this, Gav, because I just really want to ask you this question. On this is asylum reforms that the Prime Minister's put out to the country the other day. Many people are saying that actually that's just going to wave through these illegal migrants, give them the right to remain in the country. Is that not the opposite to what people want? What's your belief? Is it your belief that people want this hotel crisis to end, for the illegal migrants to stay? It's slightly confusing messaging there.
No, it's not. I think that I, like everybody else, don't want to see people living in hotels who have no right to be in the country. The 100,000 backlog that actually is coming down at the quickest rate since this situation started, when Robert Jenrick and others were proudly proclaiming how many hotels they'd secured. We are getting those numbers down. We are dealing with the backlog, and we are assuring through returns agreements and deportations that those people who have no right to be in the UK, once their case has been heard, are taken out of the UK. I agree with the frustrations of the country. I agree with the frustrations of my own constituents who I speak to weekly about this. They do not want to see hotels being used for this purpose, but we need a scheme that allows for those hotels to be closed, that the individuals in those hotels to be dealt with accordingly based on what the legal system allows, which in the UK means if their case is heard and they are given right to stay, that they start to work and pay tax. And if they're not allowed to be here, they are removed quickly to a safe place where they came from, and that we get that done, because it's also costing us an absolute fortune, and that is money that we don't really have available to spend on this scheme.
OK, Gareth Snell there. Thank you very much for joining me, Labour MP for Stoke-on-Trent Central. Very, very appreciate you coming on the show to give us your thoughts on those plans for Reform UK today and, of course, the government's plans to tackle this crisis. OK, moving on. Brits have been warned to brace for a plague of rats this winter as hunters report catching rodents more than 20 inches long. A bit like that one behind me there. Let's speak with Brummie Verminator, CEO of Pest Interceptors, Christian Hems. Christian, thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, I mean, a big concern. We've of course had the Birmingham bin crisis that seems to be still ongoing. That's when we first started to become aware of these mega rodents in the country. Christian, are you seeing a big uptick in your work? Are you prepared for a winter of rodent mania?
Well, I mean, every winter tends to get busier than in the summer months. That's usually, though, in reality, because there's more people inside their houses than outside their houses. So, for example, in the winter, you might be inside for 18 hours of the day, outside for 18 hours of the day in the summer, and you just become more aware of them. That's inside houses, obviously. Outside, that's a different kettle of fish.
And we were talking earlier about this issue because this has been something that British people are very worried about. They're very worried about this rat crisis because we saw those, in some cases in Birmingham, rats as big as dogs. Have you encountered anything like that in your work so far, Christian?
Not quite as big as dogs, but they definitely get bigger.
Just for the audience's perspective, we can see someone on the screen that you've caught, Christian. Is that right?
That is my foot. I do remember that one. Yeah, it was quite a large one.
Yeah, so not quite as big as dogs, but pretty big nonetheless. The size of your foot there. Some big rats we can see. Are you seeing an increase in the size of rats that you're catching? Is there a noticeable increase in their size over the last few years?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, though, it's no real surprise, is it? Because you walk down any high street in the UK now and everyone's waddling along. Wasn't like that 10, 15, 20 years ago, let's face it. And why are people like that? Because of the food they eat and the drugs they're getting prescribed by the doctors. So rats, most of their food comes from the sewers, okay? The food they're taking from the bins, again, is mainly junk food. It's the food that we're eating. So why does it surprise people that when their staple food is out of the bins of the food we're eating, or the food we've eaten when it goes down the toilet in the sewer, that's actually their staple diet. But that way, they're also getting all the drugs that we're ingesting for this, that, and the other. Perhaps the Ozempic craze might help the size of the rats. Who knows, eh?
Yeah, Ozempic for rats, Christian. I love that. So that's a good invention, and we might need it. As Brummie Verminator, the CEO of Pest Interceptors, Christian Hems, thank you so much for joining me, man. I love that idea. That's a good one. I'll see if I can maybe patent that or something. Anyway, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello. Well, there's plenty of sunny spells across Europe, but also some widespread thunderstorms developing. So across much of Madeira and the Canary Islands, a few showers here and breezy. Across Spain, fine with plenty of sunshine. But here are those thunderstorms with the risk of hail and lightning. Across Greece, much of the country seeing plenty of sunshine here. And as we go through the week, there'll still be some showers around, but also plenty of sunshine still, and temperatures up to 33.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racist tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Netflix has released a trailer for season 2.
Why do you read this as if it's actually serious? Netflix has released a season. Your woman, Meghan Markle, is back on making a cooking programme that no one has ever watched, right?
Yes.
And then we're all sitting saying, not only is she making that cooking programme, but her husband, where's he?
He's not in it.
Yeah, basically.
But, did you hear?
No, I don't care either.
He doesn't like lobster.
What's that got to do with the price of bread?
That's the big revelation from this trailer.
Well, if that's the best we're going to get, here it is. This is what it's like.
Of these moments of discovery and beauty. So let's be curious together. Do you know who doesn't like lobster?
Who?
My husband.
And you'll marry him? But can I just say, there's no taste to lobster, really. You can't.
Well, I don't like lobster.
Well, what do you mean? There's nothing to lobster.
I just don't want to work that hard for my food, you know? You have to really crack and dig around.
No, that's a point. No, I agree.
And you get nothing out of it, really.
But you can have all that rubbish they're standing eating there and whatever, the sort of stuff that you would throw up in your street. And well, I mean concoct. I don't mean like throw up as in vomit. But anyway, it could make you. Kinsey Schofield's been across all of this. We go live. Forgive my cynicism with this. I don't care about her, and I don't care about her cooking programme. Does that make me really odd?
No, but I did really love Ellie's point about lobster being way too complicated. If I can't microwave it, I just don't find, that's too much effort for me. So, my big takeaway was Daniel, the makeup artist, survived Meghan Markle's bath salts from season 1. I thought that was exciting.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, I'm Alex Armstrong and this is the Martin Daubney Show. Well, hundreds turned up to watch the famous World Gravy Wrestling Championships. Well, this might seem a bit odd to you, but it is a real competition. The saucy SmackDown began back in 2007 in a village north of Ramsbottom. And another fun fact, around 1,000, you can see this on your screens here, 1,500 litres of Lancashire gravy is poured into a ring before contestants in fancy dress enter to do a battle in 2-minute bouts. Well, we can now speak with the 6-time champion of the World Gravy Wrestling Championships, Joel Hicks. Joel, thank you so much for joining me. Boy, I don't even know where to start. I've got so many questions here. I think the one I really, really want to ask you is, what is the best gravy out there, and is there a certain type of gravy you need to wrestle in?
Well, the thicker the better, I think, is the way we look at it.
One year, the organisers did use an onion-based gravy, which proved to be quite a disaster, as no one could see after about being in the gravy for 3 seconds, and everyone's eyes were watering and streaming. But we'll take whatever's on offer. As you say, we are mixing anywhere close to 2,000 litres of the stuff every year in this competition, and yeah, it gets kind of messy.
Yeah, I think you told us you've got half a ton of gravy stuck in your ear still, I think, there, Joel.
Yeah, about 20%, I think.
You might be able to pour yourself a bit of gravy on that Yorkshire pudding you might have on next Sunday. What sort of competition is it? Do you get people competing from all over the world in this?
Yeah, we often do. This year we actually had a guy from New Zealand competing in the final. He was unlucky to go against a local, and so the crowd decided that he was going to be second best this year. But we have a men's competition, which usually gets about 16 entrants. We also have a female competition coming in. And so, yeah, we also try and do a kids thing at the interval every now and again. So it really is a competition for all the family and for all the world.
And has this competition sort of picked up over the years? Is it getting more and more popular? I mean, of course, we've got social media these days, so events like this can spread around the world. I know that cheese rolling competition, which used to be a very local thing, is now international. People fly in.
Yeah, I mean, the gravy wrestling's been going now for nearly 20 years, and we started off in a supermarket car park in Wigan, just wrestling in a paddling pool with a few people sort of thinking, what on earth is going on, throwing a few coppers into a bucket. And then we moved to the Rose and Bowl pub in Stackstead, which, as you can see from your footage, it's an absolutely lovely venue for us to wrestle in, particularly on a bank holiday like it was yesterday with the sun blazing. And we get over 1,000 people coming down every year supporting, making this event actually what is one of the best events of this nature throughout the whole of the world. It's just wonderful.
Oh, well, Joel, listen, thank you so much for joining me, mate. Good luck for your next competition as well. Champion of the World Gravy Wrestling Championships there, Joel Hicks. Thank you very much for joining me. Well, it's been a fantastic show. Thank you all for joining me today. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow at the usual time. And don't forget, Alex Armstrong Tonight starts this Saturday. It's going to be a tremendous show. I hope you can all join me. But up next, we have the fantastic Dawn Neeson standing in for Jubes. Well, you're now the queen of primetime yourself, Dawn. How's it going?
Thank you very much for leaving me with gravy wrestling. I don't know how to top this one. We've got a great show coming up for you. Shocking new warnings about a definition of Islamophobia. What to do about 6.5 million Brits unemployed. And should we make destroying the British flag and indeed the Cross St George a criminal offence? All of that coming up very soon. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you soon.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Now, most of today's showers are going to ease as we go through the evening, but then there's some heavy thundery rain arriving as we go through tomorrow. That's because there's a weather system waiting out in the Atlantic, and this is going to push its way in through the next 24 hours. Before this, we do have a couple of fronts lying across us, but these are just bringing the focus for some showers. Like I said, though, most of those showers easing as we go through this evening and overnight, albeit some northern and western parts clinging on to a few showers for a little while longer. So most places having a largely dry night with some clear skies, under which it could turn a little fresh for some. Most towns and cities well staying into double figures, but some rural spots just about dropping into single figures. And then tomorrow we do have this wet and thundery weather that's coming in from the west. So quite early on, that's going to be pushing into parts of western, southwestern Wales, also across parts of Devon and Cornwall. A drier start further east across much of England. However, across Northern Ireland, it's a cloudy, wet start, some heavy bursts of rain. Watch out for some gusty winds through the morning rush hour as well. Whilst across much of Scotland, the heavy thundery rain will take a little while longer to reach here, but there could be a few showers around early on. That band of rain then does make its progress across the whole country. It's quite a narrow band of rain, but it's not moving especially quickly, so the rain shouldn't last particularly long, but we could see an hour or so of some heavy rain wherever you are. Just the further east you are, the longer it's going to take for that rain to arrive. There will also be some gusty winds, and the gusty winds, they'll add to a slight slightly fresher feel to things, with temperatures for many a few degrees down compared to today. That rain will eventually clear away towards the east as we go later on, with something sunnier, clearer following in behind, but a scattering of showers pushing in across parts of Northern Ireland. Plenty more showers to come as we go through the end of the week, and watch out, we could see some particularly wet and windy weather on Saturday. See you later.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Expect delays on the A90 southbound at Teeling due to a road incident. The M6 in Warrington is fully closed southbound due to a broken down vehicle, with normal traffic anticipated between 7:15 and 7:30 this evening. The A5 northbound junction with the A488 in Shropshire reports a load spillage, resulting in one lane closure, with normal conditions expected between 9:45 and 10 this evening. Congestion